Welcome to Fiction Audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribing would be greatly appreciated. If you have any recommendations for novels, comment below.
Please join my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/fictionaudiobook.
Chapter 57, A Boy's Past, 3. Narration POV. Arthur, or rather Aki, stood next to his mother, watching her with eyes that had learned to read every subtle shift in her expression, every tremor in her hands. She was as she had always been, kind, gentle in her movements, her voice still carrying that soft melody he'd known since before he could remember. And yet she wasn't. The woman who had once read him stories with animated voices, who had laughed at his childish jokes and held him close during thunderstorms, had become someone else entirely. Someone mad. Someone who switched at the drop of a hat. And while Aki wouldn't admit it, it scared him. After social services came that first time, the days passed in a blur of deterioration. His mother's condition only seemed to grow worse and worse with each sunset, each dawn bringing new challenges that Aki's young mind struggled to comprehend. Her mood changed sporadically, without warning or reason. One moment she would be sitting quietly at their small kitchen table, staring at nothing, and the next she would erupt in fury, or weep without stop, or laugh boisterously. As if hundreds of emotions were constantly surging inside her all at once. She'd start throwing objects at the wall, plates, cups, picture frames, making them shatter on impact with a violence that made Aki flinch every time. After these episodes, she would close herself in their shared bedroom, barricading the door with furniture, leaving Aki to sleep on the couch for days at a time. His enhanced hearing picking up her ragged breathing, the occasional sob, the restless pacing that went on for hours. Sometimes he heard her talking to herself, or to someone who wasn't there. Other times, there was only silence so complete it terrified him more than any scream could. All the while, Aki tried to be there for her, whenever he could reach her through the fog that seemed to surround her more and more each day. He learned to cook simple meals, rice, eggs, instant noodles, sliding plates under the door when she wouldn't come out. He cleaned up the broken pieces after her episodes, his small hands now no longer able to be cut by anything that shattered like the first night. He did the laundry in the building's basement, standing on a stool to reach the machines, memorizing which buttons to press because he couldn't quite read all the instructions yet. And each time social services came by for their scheduled visits, they kept on performing for them. His mother would emerge from her room, shower, put on clean clothes, and smile that empty smile. Aki would sit beside her on the couch, holding her hand, telling the social workers about the games they played, the books she read to him. Aki didn't know what was going on with his mom, but he knew he could help her. He had to help her. She was all he had, and he was all she had. They were supposed to protect each other. He just wasn't trying hard enough. Yes, he was sure that was the problem. If he could just be better, cleaner, quieter, more helpful, if he could just figure out the right combination of words and actions, he could bring her back. He could fix this. He could fix her. That's what knights did, after all. They saved people. They protected the innocent. And his mother had called him her knight so many times before. Until one day. Aki awoke to the sound of a dripping faucet, each drop hitting the metal sink, in an arrhythmic manner. He could hear someone coming up to their apartment's door, footsteps on the concrete stairs outside. He jumped off the bed, expecting to see his mom at his side as they only had one bed to share. But no, the space beside him was empty, the sheets cold to the touch. The indent where she should have been was barely visible, as if she had left hours ago. Immediately his eyes went wide, panic flooding his small body with adrenaline. He burst from the sheets, his bare feet hitting the cold floor as he quickly began investigating the entire apartment. The bathroom, empty. The kitchen, empty. The living room, empty. His mom was gone. The realization hit him all at once, stealing his breath. She had left. Where could she go? Why would she go? How hadn't he heard her leave? He walked back into their room on unsteady legs, and that's when he noticed it, a book on the wooden floor. The book she used to read him, the Henriade. The stories of kings and princes, of honor and duty, of battles fought and won. The book she had called his when he was smaller. Just as he grabbed it, his fingers trembling as they closed around the familiar worn cover, he heard the ring of the doorbell. The sound reverberated in his enhanced ears. He didn't know what to do. He slowly walked to stand in front of the door, the book clutched against his chest like armor. Then he heard it again, the ring of the doorbell. He stayed rooted to his spot, watching the door handle as if it might turn on its own, his enhanced hearing picking up the breathing of whoever stood on the other side, the slight shift of weight from foot to foot, the rustle of clothing. Then he heard it, the jingle of keys. The scrape of metal against metal as the key found the lock. The turning of the knob from the outside. Someone was opening the door. Someone had a key to their apartment. Immediately he felt the hairs at the back of his neck stand on end, his body tensing like a spring wound too tight. His mind raced through possibilities: the landlord, a burglar, social services coming to take him away. The knob turned a bit more, and with a creak that resounded in his ears like thunder, the door slowly swung open. Light from the hallway spilled into the dim apartment, silhouetting the figure in the doorway. He saw who had opened the door. His mom. She stood there like a sentinel. Her brown hair was thinning and gray at the roots. When had that happened? Her eyes were hollow, sunken into her face like she hadn't slept in days. Her clothes hung loose on her thinning frame. But Aki didn't see any of that. Not really. His child's heart, desperate for love, for things to be okay again, saw only his mother returned. "Mom," he yelled, the word torn from his throat with such force it almost hurt. He ran to her, the book falling from his hands and landing with a soft thud onto the rug on the floor. He didn't care about the book, didn't care about anything except the fact that she was here, she was back, she hadn't left him after all. He hugged her legs with all his small might, his face upturned to look at hers, searching for that spark of recognition, that moment of connection that would tell him everything was going to be all right. Her face fell down to meet his gaze, and for a moment, he saw something he couldn't place. Maybe regret. He smiled even wider, willing her to smile back, willing the moment to become what he needed it to be. She simply tousled his hair a bit, her fingers moving through the familiar motion, and then began to walk into the apartment. He expected her to close the door after she came in, to shut out the world so they could be together again, just the two of them against everything else. But that didn't happen. Instead, Aki saw someone else standing at the door's frame, waiting, watching. Junpei Mamoru stood there in his customary social services uniform, his kind face trying to project reassurance. Mr. Bubbles, as he himself had said he wanted to be called on one of the occasions he'd visited to check on them. The nickname had made Aki laugh then. It didn't seem funny now. His mother pushed Aki aside for a moment, gently, but firmly, walking deeper into the apartment as she kneeled to grab the Henriade from where it had fallen. She cleaned the cover a bit with the back of her hand, her fingers tracing the embossed title with something that might have been tenderness. When she turned around, Aki was already in front of her again, drawn like a magnet, their eyes meeting. "Aki," she began, her voice monotone, stripped of any affection or emotion, as if she was trying to bottle it all up. "You'll be going with Mr. Mamoru for a little bit, okay?" "Go." "Go where?" Aki asked, though part of him already knew. A sinking feeling began to appear in his stomach, cold and heavy like he'd swallowed stones. "Mommy has some problems she needs to sort out." She began. "You're lying," Aki interrupted, his small hand falling on her chest, right over her heart. He could feel it beating too fast, hear it with his enhanced senses, a frantic rhythm that betrayed her calm exterior. "I can hear it. Your heart. It's beating wrong." Her face crumpled for just a second before she pulled it back together. "Aki, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just go with the men." Aki craned his neck back to look at the doorway, where Mr. Mamoru, Bubbles, waited patiently, his hands clasped in front of him. The man's eyes were sad behind his glasses. "No." The word came out small but firm, a child's defiance was a futile thing however. "Aki." His mother's voice carried a warning now, an edge of desperation. "No, they can't separate me from you." "I'm not stupid," Aki said, tears beginning to creep at the edges of his eyes, making everything blurry. "Please just tell me what is wrong. I'll fix it, I promise. I always do. I always fix it. I clean, I cook, I'm quiet when you need me to be. I can be better. I can be perfect. Just tell me what to fix." Victoria's hand, the one that wasn't holding the book, cupped Aki's cheek. Her palm was cold against his flushed skin, but gentle, so gentle it made his heart break a little more. "You can't fix this, my knight. Some things are too broken. Even for knights. But I can dash." He wanted to tell her about his powers, how they were getting stronger, how maybe he could use them to help somehow, but the words wouldn't come. "Please, Aki, if you love me, you'll leave with the nice men." The words were barely a whisper, but they might as well have been screamed. She was using his love against him, and they both knew it. But his protest died as he saw her face. "Please," she pleaded, her own eyes beginning to form tears that she refused to let fall. "Please, my brave boy. Do this for me. Be strong for me, one more time." It pained Aki to see his mother like that, destroyed something in him to watch her beg. He couldn't see her like that. He'd never been able to refuse her anything. So he obeyed her wishes, though it felt like tearing himself in half. "Okay, Mom. Okay." He took the book from his mother's hand, her fingers lingering on it for a moment before letting go, as if she were passing it on to him. A family heirloom of sorts. He slowly walked to the door. He didn't want to leave. Every instinct screamed at him to turn around, to run back to her, to hold on and never let go. But when he finally made it to the door, he turned back one more time. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry I couldn't be better. I'm sorry I couldn't fix it. None of this is your fault, my knight, she said, and for the first time that morning, her voice held warmth, held love, held all the things she couldn't give him anymore. None of it. Remember that. You are perfect exactly as you are. Mr. Bubbles took his free hand, his grip firm but gentle, and began to lead him away. Aki let himself be led, clutching the book with his other hand, looking back over his shoulder as they walked down the hallway. His mother stood in the doorway, watching, growing smaller with each step until Mr. Bubbles guided him around a corner and she was gone. They left the building, and he was placed in a car, a generic government sedan. He heard the click of the seatbelt, felt Mr. Bubbles checking to make sure it was secure before closing the door and walking around to the driver's side. The engine started with a rumble that seemed too loud in the silence. They pulled away from the curb, and Aki watched his building grow smaller through the rear window until it disappeared entirely. In the suffocating silence that followed, Aki finally asked the question that had been burning in his throat. What's wrong with my mom? His voice was small, broken, barely audible. Mr. Bubbles' hands tightened on the steering wheel. I can't tell you that, Aki. I'm sorry. Will she be able to visit? The hope in his voice was painful to hear, even to his own ears. In the rearview mirror, Bubbles' eyes met Aki's, even through the glasses. Maybe, he said, his voice low, noncommittal. Aki drew the book closer to his chest, holding it like it might keep him warm, might keep him together. He began to shudder, his small body racked with silent sobs, whimpers echoing in the confined space of the car. The tears came freely now, no longer held back by hope or denial. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, the car came to a stop. Bubbles opened Aki's door. Come on, let's go. Aki nodded, his movements slothful as he unbuckled his seatbelt. He remembered his mother's pleading words, echoing in his mind. If you love me, please leave with the nice men. You'll be staying here, at least for a while, Bubbles said, cutting Aki's train of thought. He then took off his glasses. Both he and Aki looked at the building before them. Musutifu Orphanage, Aki read from the sign above the entrance. Come on, go in. You'll make lots of friends, I'm sure, Bubbles said as he patted Aki on the back. A/N, I'm going to upload 4 chapters, this being one of them. These 2 chapters are going to be 1 Arthur's full past since I had most of that written out, and 2 the ending of the story, which again I had most of it written out already. I did not lie about having a full outline, I just don't have the time to write it all. I'm uploading these as a final hurrah. I'll upload the next and last part of this backstory in 2 to 3 hours, as again, it requires a lot of editing, but it's mostly done. Last hurrah. Chapter 58, A Boy's Past, 4. It had been a week. A week since he had been taken from his mother, though taken may not have been the right word, it was the one which Aki felt. The only one that could describe what he was going through, the only one that could describe what he was thinking. He was sitting on his bed, his back against the cold wall, knees drawn up to his chest, the book, the last gift of his mother, in his hands. The orphanage had been fine. It gave him food, 3 meals a day. It gave him a place to sleep, a narrow bed in a room he shared with 3 other boys. The other kids even tried to talk to him. But Aki remained silent to it all. He just kept rereading his book over and over and over. The pages were worn now, some corners dog-eared from his constant handling. Because it was the last thing his mother had given him. If he concentrated hard enough, he could almost smell her on the binding, one of the few good things that came from his enhanced senses. And yet, he loathed it. He loathed every second of it. The book was a reminder of that last day, of her shaking hands as she pressed it into his arms, of the way she couldn't quite meet his eyes. He wanted to be with his mother. He wanted to be there for her. To help her. To cure her. To make everything go back to the way it was before. 2. Aki. His thoughts were interrupted. His eyes, which were fixed on the cover of the book, already peeling off at the edges, flew up to meet the black sunglasses of a man. Aki could see the man's eyes through his glasses, the eyes of the men who had brought him here. He loathed him too. This man who spoke in gentle tones but whose actions had torn his world apart. A person is here to see you. A person. Aki replied, his voice sore from disuse, cracking on the syllables. He hadn't spoken much since coming here, what was the point? Words couldn't change anything. Is it ? Hope flared in his chest, small yet there, he hoped against hope, but of course the man's next words would shatter even that. No, it isn't your mother. Aki gnashed his teeth but said nothing more, his gaze returning to the book in his grip. His fingers tightened around it until his knuckles went white. He wanted to tear it apart, to tear the pages, to burn the spine, too. But he couldn't. It was all he had left. The bed creaked ominously as it sank beside him. Aki looked to his side, watching as Bubbles settled his considerable bulk onto the mattress. His burly body filled almost all of the available space, making Aki feel even smaller than his 7 years already did. I'm sorry. The words were soft, almost whispered. Aki remained quiet, his gaze still on the book. I'm sorry for taking you from her, but it is what is best for you. Best for him. What did this man know of what was best for him? He didn't. He knew nothing. The words bubbled up from deep inside, unstoppable. She needs me. I know, but she shouldn't. You don't get it. The words came out sharp, especially for Aki himself. He had never spoken like that before, he had never spoken with anger. That's true, Bubbles said almost in a hollow laugh, a sound that held no real humor. I don't. Probably no one will. That's the funny thing about being human. No one understands us. No one ever truly will. We bear the pain. Sometimes we find people who can bear it with us, but you're too young to bear your mother's. The philosophy was lost on a 7-year-old who only knew that his mother was alone and he wasn't there to help her. Aki became quiet once more, retreating into himself like a turtle into its shell. I do need you to come with me though. It is mandatory for you to meet this person. Mandatory. Another adult word that meant he had no choice. Who is it? A doctor. He's going to check up on you. I'm fine. The response was automatic. He didn't need a doctor. Nothing wrong with being sure, Bubbles replied, a sigh almost escaping his lips. Aki jumped from the bed with more energy than he'd shown all week, the book still clutched in his hands. Bubbles also stood up, his mass making the bed creak in protest. It had been a marvel that it hadn't bent completely under his weight. Bubbles extended his hand, thick fingers spread in an invitation for Aki to take it, but when he saw the boy wasn't going to, he decided to forego the gesture and simply opened the door instead. Both of them walked through it, their footsteps echoing in the hallway. They walked down one hallway after another, until finally made it to an oak door, the exact same as the others. Bubbles opened it with a soft click of the latch. Go in. You're not coming? Aki asked. For some reason, this surprised him. No, only your legal guardian can be in there with your doctor, I'm not. Aki nodded, not knowing exactly what a legal guardian was, as he went through the door, hearing the creak as Bubbles closed it once more. The room was sparse, deliberately so, as if someone had tried to make it non-threatening but had only succeeded in making it feel empty. A medical bed sat at one side, its paper covering crinkling from seemingly nothing at all. Along the same wall stood various pieces of equipment, a blood pressure monitor, a scale, shelves lined with medication bottles. At the other side of the room was a simple desk, papers scattered across its surface in what looked like organized chaos, and behind it, a chair. On said chair was a man, reclining back and forth with a rhythmic squeak. Aki's enhanced eyes locked onto the man, taking in all of his features at once. The doctor was an old man of short stature, probably only a head and a half taller than Aki himself, and he had just celebrated his 7th birthday not long ago. Though celebrated may not have been the right word for it, as his mother had had one of her episodes before they could. The doctor was completely bald, and had a very large and bushy mustache that seemed to compensate for the lack of hair elsewhere. It was gray, streaked with white, and moved when he spoke like a living thing. He wore black-rimmed glasses that sat on his brow rather than his nose, an affectation that made him look both scholarly and slightly ridiculous. His doctor's coat was pristine white, with a simple shirt beneath it. A single thought ran through his mind at that moment. Much too white. Hello, little one, the doctor said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes, breaking Aki's momentary thought. I'm Dr. Tsubasa. He rose from his chair with a soft grunt, the movement adding a few inches to his height but not enough to make him imposing. He moved slowly, as he walked over to the medical bed. His fingers, Aki noticed, were long and thin, and when he tapped the bed with his index finger, the sound seemed too loud in the quiet room. Come now, get on it, I'm going to test your physical. Aki nodded. He went over to the bed, the paper crinkling under him as he sat, the book still clutched in his hands. Well then, what's your name? The doctor asked as he plugged his stethoscope in his ears. Aki Tadashi. Aki's voice came out quieter than he expected it to. He cleared his throat, tried again, but the doctor was already moving on. Tadashi, the doctor muttered, rolling the name around in his mouth like he was tasting it. He unplugged his stethoscope from his ears, placing it back on his neck. Oh, you're Victoria's son. Aki's eyes widened at his words, his heart suddenly hammering in his chest. Yes, I am. How do you know my mother? Oh, poor thing, has no one told you? The doctor asked. The corners of the doctor's lips were upturning slightly, a micro-expression of something that looked almost like satisfaction. It was a detail Aki wouldn't have missed normally, his enhanced vision catching every twitch and tell, but he was too focused on the fact that this stranger knew his mother's name to care about the warning signs. Told me what? The question came out desperate, needy. He hated it. Your mother is the closest person to ever suffer from quirk singularity. The words made no sense to the young boy. Quirk singularity. Aki repeated, the unfamiliar term feeling strange on his tongue. You really do not know anything, do you? The doctor's tone was almost pitying now, but that undertone of something else remained. Do you even know your mother's quirk? Aki shook his head, shame coloring his cheeks. How could he not know? She was his mother, the most important person in his world, and he didn't even know something so fundamental about her. It's called phase blood. Quite a poetic name for such a devastating ability. It lets her experience the feelings of anyone in a certain area as if they were her own. The more she grew, the more this area expanded. Imagine it, young Aki, feeling every joy, every sorrow, every flash of anger or moment of fear from everyone around you, all at once, with no way to turn it off. The doctor's hands were cold as they pressed against Aki's neck, checking lymph nodes, but Aki barely noticed. Yes, I've been treating your mother since she was as small as you. 7 years old when they first brought her to me, crying because she couldn't understand why she felt so many things that weren't hers. The first thing I taught her was to release these feelings through an anchor, someone she could be complete with, someone whose emotions could ground her own. She jumped from one to another for years, struggling to find stability. Parents, friends, tutors, therapists, anyone who could provide that emotional tether. Until she finally found one she could stick with. The doctor paused, adjusting his glasses though they didn't need adjusting. In fact, she stopped seeing me soon after. Completely dropped out of treatment. She seemed to be quite in control, found her perfect anchor in a man who loved her as much as she needed to be loved. I was starting to believe that quirk singularity wasn't that great a theory after all. Perhaps some people could simply adapt, evolve with their quirks rather than be consumed by them. His mustache twitched. Then he went off and died. The words were delivered so casually, even Aki hadn't registered that the man this doctor was speaking of was his father. No, all Aki did was listen. He shouldn't have. He should have thought about why a doctor was telling him this, why this particular revelation was being delivered to a 7-year-old child who had no framework to process it. He should have thought about why this doctor in particular was here, in this specific orphanage, at this specific time. But he didn't. He stayed quiet and listened, each word sinking into him. She came back 2 years ago, the doctor continued, his voice taking on an almost conversational tone, as if they were discussing something mundane rather than the destruction of everything Aki had believed about his life. Desperate. Broken, really. She said she had tried to find another anchor, in you, funnily enough. Her own son, the last piece of the man she'd loved. But she said it wasn't working, that her area was growing more and more each day and she couldn't take it. The emotions of hundreds of thousands, probably millions now, all pressing in on her consciousness at once. The doctor pulled out a small flashlight, checking Aki's pupil response while he talked, the light harsh and invasive. My oh my, how many drugs I tried to take her edge off. Suppressants, inhibitors. We tried meditation, isolation therapy, sensory deprivation tanks, all this while you were off at school. It's why social services were tipped off in the first place. Nothing worked for long. The quirk just kept growing stronger, the radius expanding exponentially. But her breaking point. He paused, clicking the flashlight off, leaving spots dancing in Aki's vision. Her breaking point came all the same. When she couldn't even keep it together for 3 hours without completely losing herself to the emotional chaos around her. The doctor moved to check Aki's ears now, the cold metal of the otoscope uncomfortable against his skin. I guessed she had been releasing her frustrations at home, the anger that wasn't hers, the sadness that belonged to strangers, all of it pouring out somewhere. But I couldn't quite be sure where or how. His voice dropped, became almost conspiratorial. Until that day, that is. She came and confessed, and so social services finally took you. Aki didn't know what to say, a single sentence spilled from his mouth. My mom is sick. Deathly so, I'm afraid. The doctor said it so casually, so matter-of-factly, as if he hadn't just destroyed the last hope a 7-year-old had been clinging to. Aki's heart beat. It beat louder and louder and louder, each pulse resounding like thunder in his chest. The sound filled his ears until it was all he could hear, not the doctor's continued commentary, not even his own ragged breathing. Just that relentless pounding that seemed to shake his entire small frame. It thrummed in his ears like a drum. His brain couldn't think, couldn't process, couldn't make sense of the information that had been so cruelly delivered. The words bounced around his skull, quirk singularity, deathly ill, anchor, breaking point. His entire being was on edge, every nerve firing at once, every muscle tense to the point of pain. He was about to explode, he could feel it building inside, the fuse running out quickly. He needed to see his mom. The need was physical, visceral, clawing at his insides. She was sick, sick people got better, that was what happened, that was how the world worked. He was going to make her get better. He had to. She needed an anchor. He'd be her anchor. The book in his hands creaked under the pressure of his grip. The doctor was still talking, but the words were just noise now, meaningless sounds against the roar of blood in Aki's ears. His vision began to narrow, darkening at the edges. He needed to be with his mother. Now. Then he burst. A/N, sup had some free time, so here you guys and gals go. See you when I have some more free time. It's been a pleasure. Chapter 59, A Boy's Past, Final. In that single beat, Aki didn't know what happened, but his body was engulfed by something. It brought him to his limits and crushed them, shattering whatever he knew he could do. His legs sprung from the floor, muscles coiling like compressed springs, the tendons in his calves burning as they expanded and released in quick succession. The wooden floorboards beneath him splintered, leaving deep grooves where his feet had been just milliseconds before. His body flung through a window, the glass exploding outward. He moved much too fast to even be grazed by them, the shards seeming to hang suspended in the air as he passed through. His eyes flared open in sudden realization. He forgot he had been in the 4th floor. The world tilted. His stomach lurched into his throat as gravity seized hold of his small body, pulling him toward the unforgiving concrete below. 4 stories. 40 feet. Aki should have been worried, should have been terrified, but he wasn't. The sole thing on his mind was reaching his mother. That feeling, that horrible, gut-wrenching certainty that something was wrong consumed everything else. His hair ran wild, whipping around his face, the wind crashing against his face. Time seemed to stretch. He could see people on the sidewalk below, their faces turning upward in slow motion, mouths opening in shock. A woman dropped her shopping bag. A man pulled a child back. But Aki barely registered them. He simply couldn't. Wouldn't. The only thing that mattered was his mother. He crashed onto the floor, his legs somehow absorbing the impact as the pavement cracked and buckled beneath him, spider-webbing outward in a 20-foot radius. The sound was like thunder. Windows rattled. Car alarms began to wail. Then his heart burst again, that same overwhelming surge of power flooding through his veins. He was propelled forward, a sonic boom erupting in his wake that knocked over trash cans and sent papers swirling into the air. His feet barely touched the ground as he dashed across the sidewalk, his body moving on pure instinct. Dodging pedestrians who seemed frozen in place, leaping over entire cars. The city blurred around him. But cutting through it all was that voice, that desperate, screaming need that echoed in his mind, over and over and over again. It started as low, then grew in a crescendo until it was like another person screaming into his skull and rattling his brain. Get to her now. He didn't register the voice as his own. He thought back frantically to the time Bubbles drove him to the orphanage, trying to map the route in reverse. Every twist and turn played out in his mind like a video on fast forward. Even though he had spent most of that car ride looking down at the book she'd given him, trying not to cry about leaving his mother, his body remembered. His superior instincts traced the path, almost like following an invisible thread. He burst again, that power exploding from his core. Streets flew by. 3 blocks. 5 blocks. 10. His lungs should have been burning, his muscles should have been screaming in protest, but they weren't. When the instant was done, when the world finally stopped spinning and his feet finally stopped moving, he stood in front of it, their building. It was a modest apartment complex, 5 stories of faded beige concrete. His eyes locked onto the first floor, where their tiny apartment laid. Second window from the left. He didn't even think about it, his legs coiling underneath. The concrete beneath his feet cracked again as he gathered power. Then he jumped. He soared through the air in a perfect arc, his hand shooting out at exactly the right moment to grab the railing of their floor's exterior hallway. Metal groaned under his grip as he hurled himself over, landing with a heavy thud. His momentum, however, didn't waver. He moved toward their door. His breath came in ragged gasps, though whether from being tired or being worried or being anxious, he couldn't tell. His heart hammered against his ribs so hard he thought they might crack. Aki didn't know. He would never know. No matter how many times he relived this moment in the years to come. No matter how many times he would wake up drenched in sweat, wondering if he could have been faster. But for now, that didn't matter. What mattered was his small hand wrapping around the door handle, it was cold. He pulled, hard. Too hard. The door didn't open, it cracked like kindling, the wood splintering around the lock as it flew off its hinges. The door hung suspended for a moment on the boy's fingers before he let go, letting it fall to the wayside with a crash that should have brought neighbors running. But Aki was already inside. His instincts screamed at him, every nerve ending suddenly on fire as his nostrils flared, taking in that smell. He expected the smell of home, but he was wrong. What he smelt was copper. Metallic. Wrong. It was thick in the air, making his stomach turn. Aki didn't know why, but his movement slowed, almost faltered. His legs felt like they were moving through water. Some part of his brain was screaming at him to stop, to turn around, to run away. Maybe he should have listened to that voice, but he didn't. He couldn't. He wouldn't. One foot in front of the other, he slowly approached where the smell was coming from. Past the small kitchen where his mother had her first episode. Past the living room where he had slept alone for the first time. Past their bedroom where he tried to console his mother as she wailed and spasmed. Finally he stopped. The bathroom. The smell came from inside. The white door hung slightly open, just a crack, but enough for the terrible smell to seep through. Aki placed his trembling hand on the door, feeling the cheap painted wood beneath his fingers. He pushed slowly, the hinges creaking in protest, the sound filling his ears like a scream as the smell, that horrible copper smell, filled his nose completely. Then his eyes took in the rest. His heart came to a stop. Blood. So much blood. It spilled from the tub slowly, pooling on the cracked tiled floor. The white tiles were painted red, the grout between them dark as ink. In that very tub, surrounded by that lake of red, in a pool of her own blood, was his mother. Agake. A scream tore through Aki's throat, raw beyond anything anyone had ever screamed, a sound he didn't know his body could make. It rattled the lone mirror on the wall, creating spiderweb cracks across its surface. The scream repeated over and over in his head even after his voice gave out, echoing in the small space. He scrambled towards her, his shoes slipping in the blood, leaving small footprints in the crimson pool. His knees hit the floor hard as he fell beside the tub, the warm wetness soaking through his pants immediately. His hands reached out desperately, shaking so badly he could barely control them, to cradle his mother's neck. Her skin was still warm, God, she was still warm. His mother's brown locks, interlaced through his fingers. Some strands were matted with blood, others floated in the red water like seaweed in a crimson sea. He remembered how soft it had been, how he'd caress it when she was having one of her episodes to give her some semblance of peace he could never give her. Now it seemed she had finally found that peace. And he cried because of it. He cried and cried and cried. Tears fell from his eyes, mixing with the blood on his hands, on her face, dripping into the tub to join the red lake that had stolen her from him. Each sob racked his small body, making his chest ache, his throat burn, his eyes blur until he could barely see. She was still warm. That thought kept repeating in his mind. Still warm meant not long ago. Still warm meant if he'd been faster. Still warm meant he'd failed. His heart felt like it was about to burst from his chest, each beat sending sharp pains through his entire body. He struggled to breathe, each inhalation a desperate gasp that never seemed to bring enough air. But he couldn't stop looking at her face, her beautiful, kind face, a small smile spread through it. His hands shook uncontrollably as he tried to smooth her hair back from her face, leaving red streaks across her pale cheek. His eyes, against his will, locked onto the blood-filled tub, the water of red that now swam in his vision, filling his mind, burning itself into his memory forever. On the ceramic bottom, distorted by the red water but still visible, the weapon that had done this laid perfectly still. A simple razor. The injury of incision at its side. A cut at her thigh, deep. The femoral artery, though Aki didn't know that term at the time. No, all he knew is that was where her blood had spilled from. Mom, 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 mom. He repeated it over and over, like a prayer, like a spell that might bring her back. His fingers pulled up his mother's face to meet his gaze, hoping against hope to see recognition, to see her eyes focus on him, to see her smile one more time. But her eyes were blank, staring at nothing. He felt like he was drowning in those empty eyes, sinking into the very tub she laid in. And then his heart burst, again, and without his own input something happened. Mana flowed from his heart into his bloodstream, reaching his fingers, and flowing outward from them in invisible streams of energy. The mana traveled into the woman's corpse, spreading through her like roots through soil. You have to be okay, you have to, you have to. His voice was desperate, broken, barely human. The mana traveled through her body, stimulating her still heart, trying to move her motionless blood. Aki could hear it, or thought he could. He had to hear it. He needed to hear it. The mana traveled through her body, finally reaching the cut where all the blood had spilled from. It filtered through to the rest of the blood in the bath. Aki brought his mother as close to himself as he possibly could, his small arms barely able to lift her upper body from the tub, and cried and cried and cried. He buried his face in her neck, in her hair, breathing in the last traces of her scent beneath the copper smell of blood. Tears flowed relentlessly like water from a broken dam. Then he felt it. On his face. Something warm. Something gentle. Something wiping away his tears. Aki's eyes flew open at the touch, hope exploding in his chest like his heart did. His mouth opened in a smile so wide it hurt. His mom was. He looked into her eyes desperately, but they were still as dead as before, still staring at nothing. His gaze, confused and desperate, fell onto the previously still water. Something was moving in it. Reaching out from it, from that very same blood that had stolen her life. A hand, formed entirely of blood yet somehow solid, grazed his face with a familiar gentleness, wiping away his tears. Aki fell back in shock and terror, his hands slipping in the blood on the floor, staining themselves further with the crimson. His eyes widened at the bloody hand. He wished to speak, to scream, to ask what was happening, but his voice had abandoned him entirely. The hand's palm opened fully as more and more blood began to draw from the tub, crawling up the appendage, like crimson. Like crimson. Like crimson. He couldn't even describe it. The blood crawled onto the palm, forming something new, solidifying into another shape entirely. First a cylinder. Then a rectangle. Finally a triangular tip. More blood encased it, layer after layer, like a chrysalis of crimson, hiding what was being born within. The hand reached out from the tub, extending toward him with an offering. It was then that Aki realized what it looked like. A sword in a scabbard. Beautiful in ways no one could describe. Aki didn't know what took him, but his body moved anyway. His small, blood-stained hand found purchase on the scabbard's tip, fingers wrapping around it, for the first time. The red that was encasing it began to fall away like ash, disintegrating into nothing, revealing what lay beneath. White, pure as fresh snow. Blue, deep as the ocean. Gold, bright as the sun. A voice boomed in his head. A voice he recognized. My knight. You who deserve everything but will be cursed with providing it. You who have been born for it. You who have the qualities. You who have been graced. You who will be helped. You who will be accompanied by the absolute defense, the ever-distant utopia, Avalon, and the absolute offense, the sword of promised victory, Excalibur. Go my knight. Go my king. Go my son. A/N, finally. It's all done. Well, at least Arthur's passed. I hope you all enjoyed this. Also, yeah, his own mother is the Lady of the Lake. I bet you didn't see that coming now, did ya? Although more than a lake, she should be called the Lady of the Tub, lol. I love having this free time, and I'm sure you people love it too since you get to read more of this, don't ya? Now give me those stones, I need my dopamine. THX for reading. Author out. Chapter 60, What kind of utopia is enjoyed only by one man? Arthur POV. Ha. The scream tears from my throat before I'm even fully conscious. I'm already halfway sitting up. The covers of my bed fly over me, I realize I'm sweaty. My eyes dart around the darkened room. My breathing comes in ragged gasps, it hurts to breathe. I look to my side and there they were, exactly where they always are. Avalon. Excalibur. They rest against the wall beside my bed. My hand moves without conscious thought, reaching for Excalibur's hilt, my fingers already curling to match its familiar grip. But I stop myself before I can reach it, my hand hovering inches away, trembling slightly. I haven't had that dream in a while, I sighed, running my other hand through my sweat-matted hair. My nostrils flare as I smell my sweaty body. That dream, no, not a dream, a memory that haunted me, or at least used to. My mother's face, pale and still. The blood spreading across the tiled floor. My small hands, too weak to help, too late to save her. And then the awakening, Excalibur and Avalon appearing, summoned by my mother, her last gift to me, ironic since I had lost the book, her previous last gift to me. It had also been the moment I stopped being Aki Tadashi and became the vigilante I would be known as. Arthur. The memory, I stopped sleeping entirely because of it. When I first started out, I still slept and it haunted me. This is the first time I've had it since I began sleeping again, since I stopped being the vigilante. My gaze landed on Avalon once more, and I feel that familiar weight in my chest. I knew what she was, I knew what she did. The knowledge had come to me gradually. She wasn't just a scabbard, was as mother had described absolute defense. She granted me incredible regeneration. It made me almost immortal, at least in the physical sense. And when activated, when I truly called upon her power, nothing could harm me. I became untouchable, existing in a space separate from the world where no attack could reach me. Of course, I couldn't harm anything in return while in that state. The ever-distant utopia. The name echoes in my mind. A perfect paradise, always just out of reach. A place of absolute safety and peace. But what kind of utopia was enjoyed only by one man? I think of all the people suffering in hospitals, of heroes permanently scarred from their battles, of innocent victims who will never fully heal. And here I sit with the ultimate healing artifact bound to my soul, unable to share its gift. I rose from my bed, my bare feet hitting the cold floor with barely a sound. Walking over to the bathroom, I peel off my sweat-soaked clothes, letting them fall to the floor in a damp heap. I turn on the shower, not waiting for it to warm up before stepping under the spray. The cold water shocks my system, or should have if I had a normal body, of course what could be defined as normal in this day and age. After a moment, it begins to warm, and I stand there, letting it cascade over me. Avalon. 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 The name echoes in my mind. I press my palms against the shower wall, hanging my head to let the water run through my hair. My mother. She'd wanted to make the world better. She'd believed in kindness, in helping others. Maybe because she alone could understand other people's pain. I felt the water wash away my sweat, each droplet running down my skin. It felt almost fickle as it pitter-pattered across my hair and skin. In the rhythmic sounds, I asked myself again. What kind of utopia was enjoyed only by one man? The words feel heavier each time I think them, like they're accumulating weight, becoming more real. Was I meant to be alone? Every day I grew stronger, every day the gap between me and my classmates widened. Even among future heroes, I knew I'd be above all of them sooner or later. What of my mother's mission? She'd wanted to help people, to spread kindness. Was I? Was I failing her? I turn off the shower abruptly, the sudden silence almost deafening after the constant stream of water. I walk out of the shower, water dripping from my hair and running down my back. Steam covers the mirror in a thick fog, but even through it I am able to see my reflection. I wipe away some of the condensation with my hand, revealing more of myself. My body is unmarked. I have no scars. I have no wounds. I have no history engraved into my body. I'm a blank canvas, as if I've never fought, never struggled, never suffered. I feel unsatisfied. There's something wrong about it. They say every scar is a story. But my body tells no stories. It remembers nothing. Again I question myself, my reflection staring back with those two bright eyes. What kind of utopia was enjoyed only by one man? How many people needed Avalon's healing more than me? How many sick children in hospitals, their bodies failing them? How many heroes forced into early retirement by injuries that would never fully heal? How many civilians caught in villain attacks, left with permanent reminders of their trauma? How many? The number was probably countless. I think of Aizawa-sensei. His crippled legs from the USJ attack. The way he has to rely on a wheelchair now. I walk out of the bathroom. I pick up my sweaty clothes as I go, the fabric cold and clammy in my hands, placing them in a bag for the laundry. My gaze moves back to Avalon and Excalibur. I smile as I look at them. I open a drawer, the wood creaking slightly, and grab clean clothes. A simple shirt and pants, nothing special. I dress, my mind elsewhere, deciding to stay awake for the remainder of the night. Sleep holds nothing for me but memories I'd rather forget. I sit on the sheets, the mattress dipping under my weight, my hands moving to my family, because that's what they are, aren't they? The only family I have left. Avalon, I began, my voice barely above a whisper in the quiet room, searching for the connection I sometimes feel. Are you mine? I expect an answer. That's how it usually works, not words exactly, but feelings, something I can't describe. But none comes. The scabbard remains silent. The silence stretches. You're not, are you? I continue, my fingers tracing the patterns on Avalon's surface. They're always slightly warm to the touch, I never wondered why before. You aren't mine. You're ours. You are our utopia. Avalon was never meant for one person. It was meant to be shared, to heal, to protect everyone. The ever-distant utopia, that's what it was. I rise from my bed, strapping Avalon and Excalibur at my waist. I open my door, the hallway beyond dark and silent. The dorms are quiet at this hour, I can hear the soft breathing of my classmates through the walls, some snoring, others mumbling in their sleep. I begin to walk, my footsteps silent on the floor. I know where I want to go. There is something I need to do, or try. The thought has been building in my mind since I thought of Aizawa-sensei, growing from a whisper to a shout. If Avalon can heal me, if it's truly meant to be ours rather than mine, then maybe. Maybe I can share its gift. I speed up as I walk across the halls of UA, my pace increasing from a walk to a near blur. The corridors pass by. It doesn't take long, less than 4 seconds, before I stand in front of a door. I prepare to knock, raising my fist, but the door opens before my knuckles can make contact. Of course it does. This was Nizu we were talking about here, I grin. Inside, sitting on a reclining chair that's specially sized for his small frame, drinking a small sip of jasmine tea, I think as my nostrils take in the delicate floral scent mixed with subtle sweetness, is my favorite principal, my closest confidant. Nizu. His beady eyes look into mine, his small paws wrapped around a delicate china cup that probably costs more than most people's monthly salary. He's wearing a little vest, perfectly tailored, and his tail swishes behind him. My oh my, lad, what could you possibly be doing awake at this ungodly hour? I could ask the same of you, I reply, stepping into the room. Ah, but I asked first, he said with a sly grin, his whiskers twitching. I realized I no longer found it eerie, I hadn't for a long time. When had that changed? When had Nizu gone from being unsettling to comforting? And I asked second, I replied, a sly grin forming on my own face. Two could play at this game. Nizu releases a short squeak that could almost be called a laugh, not his usual manic cackle that sends shivers down most people's spines, but something else. It's rare to hear him make such a normal sound. Want some tea? He asks, gesturing with his tail to an already filled cup sitting on the side table. I can see a small amount of steam rising from it. I had a feeling I might have company tonight. He was really too smart sometimes. Or maybe he just always kept extra tea ready. With Nizu, it was impossible to tell. You know I don't like tea. Yes, I know, he sighs dramatically, placing a paw over his heart as if wounded. I just hoped you had grown better taste between yesterday and now. Miracles do happen, after all. I guess I haven't, I answered as I took a seat across from him. I guess you haven't. He takes another sip, his pinky raised at exactly 90 degrees, perfectly proper etiquette as expected of the smartest being in the world. He then settles the cup back down on a coaster I hadn't realized was there. So spill it. If you're not telling me why you're awake, at least tell me what you want. Can I not come here for some pleasant conversation? You can, he says, his tail swishing, but you never do. Your life has been filled with too much drama for pleasant conversations, at least with me. So. He's right, of course. Nizu is always right. Where does Aizawa-sensei live? I asked, deciding to cut straight to the point. Nizu's entire body goes still. Even his tail stops moving, frozen mid-swish. Why do you want to know? I think I can heal him. The words seemingly engulf the room, stopping either of us from speaking anymore. Nizu's cup pauses halfway to his mouth, and for once, I've actually surprised him. You what? His voice is low, I only catch it because of my own enhanced hearing. I said I think I can heal him. His legs. Since when? It's a theory, I admit, my hand unconsciously moving to rest on Avalon. Something I've been thinking about. I want to try it out. Nizu doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulls out his phone from one of the pockets of his vest. His tiny paws move across the screen, typing out what must be a message. The phone pings almost immediately with a response, but he turns it off before I can see what it says. So. I prompt. Just wait a minute, he says, settling back in his chair. Have some tea while we wait. His tail swerves to the extra cup and pushes it toward me. I sigh, looking at the cup like it might bite me. The eternal battle between my dislike of tea and my respect for Nizu wages in my mind. He's made me try every type imaginable, green, black, white, oolong, herbal, and I've enjoyed exactly none of them. Coffee, soda, juice, all of those are great and I can't get enough of them. But tea. Tea just doesn't do it for me. Thankfully, I don't have to decide as my ears twitch, picking up sounds from outside. My legs carry me instinctively toward the door, my hand already on the handle. I open it to see Aizawa rolling down the hallway in his wheelchair, his hair hanging loose around his face. His eyes look more tired than usual, the bags under them darker. Without thinking, my legs carry me forward. I grab the handles of his chair and lift it slightly, just enough that the wheels don't touch the ground. Before he can protest, though knowing Aizawa, he wouldn't have anyway, I rush back into Nizu's office with him. The whole maneuver takes less than 2 seconds, but Aizawa doesn't even look surprised. He's gotten used to my speed, or maybe he is like Mina says, a constant resting bitch face. To me he just looks tired. I set him down gently, making sure the wheelchair is stable. His eyes stare into my blue ones for a moment, before he looks down to Nizu. So what did you call me in for? His voice is as flat as always, a bit raspy as if he had woken up mere moments ago, he probably had. Nizu simply points to me, which makes Aizawa look toward me once more. His expression doesn't change, but one eyebrow raises slightly. I nod, not sure how to explain what I'm about to attempt. So I don't explain. I just do what feels right. I unsheath Excalibur from Avalon, the blade singing as it comes free. The impossibly sharp edge almost touches the floor as I put it on my waist. Without Avalon to contain it, the blade actually begins to cut into the floor just from its own weight. I'll have to apologize to Nizu for that later. I hold out Avalon by its tip, presenting it just like the bloody hand had given it to me all those years ago. Grab the end of it, I say, my voice steady, just like it had been, how I had made it be, when I became Arthur. Aizawa does as I say with no hesitation whatsoever. He reaches out and grips Avalon's pommel. His face remains impassive, but I see his fingers tighten slightly on the scabbard. For the first few seconds, nothing happens. Doubt creeps in. What if I'm wrong? What if Avalon really is only mine? But then I feel it. My heart. It thrums against my chest. Mana spills forth. It bursts into Avalon just like it had burst into Excalibur when I unleashed it onto Noma 1 at USJ. It almost looks like it begins to glow, but I think that's in my head as neither Nizu or Aizawa-sensei show any reaction to it. Then we hear it. All of us. Cracks. They are loud and reverberate through the room like gunshots. It's the sound of bones reknitting, of damaged tissue rebuilding itself, of nerves reconnecting. The sound of healing compressed into seconds what should take years, or never heal at all. The sounds of immortality surging into the man I now called sensei. Aizawa's eyes close, his face tightening, not in pain, but in something else. I think it might be similar to how I feel when Avalon heals me, that cooling sensation. The cracks last only a few seconds at most. I step away from Aizawa-sensei, releasing my hold on Avalon. But his hands still grip the scabbard, and as I move back, he's pulled up along with it. He stands. Takes a step. He doesn't fall. Another step. Another. His legs hold his weight perfectly. He looks down at them as if seeing them for the first time. He's whole again. I did it. The room is absolutely silent. Even Nizu seems to have stopped breathing. I don't know when my knees hit the floor. I don't remember falling. But suddenly I'm kneeling on the ground, Excalibur's blade cutting deeper into the floor. Nizu is definitely going to make me pay for that, though I'd be paying him with his own money, since I'd do so with the allowance he gives me, but I don't care at that point. I press Avalon's tip to my forehead, then the tears start to fall. They come all at once, unrelenting, just like they had come night, but for a very different reason. Words spill forth from my mouth before I can stop them. I did it. I couldn't save her. No matter what I did, but I saved you. I did it. Either way, Aizawa is healed, Arthur has processed a bit more about his trauma, and the question to the title of this chapter has been answered. There is no utopia when one is alone. Also, this chapter is like 3K words, I'm super tired lol. THX for reading. Send those stones and you may get extra chaps wink, wink. Author out. Chapter 61, I'm not writing, I'm drawing. Drawing conclusions. I feel a hand on my back. Small, I looked up and there he was, Nizu. His dark eyes meet my blue. Then I realize how miserable I probably look. I guess the dream impacted me more than I thought. It clings to me, making my chest feel tight. God, how annoying. I hate this. Hate feeling vulnerable, hate showing weakness, especially in front of someone like Nizu who notices everything. So I pull myself together. I stand up, legs sturdy beneath me. My hand sheathing Excalibur inside Avalon. It worked. It worked. It worked. I can heal other people. The thought circles in my mind. I gaze at Aizawa-sensei's face. He looks less tired now. Aizawa, Nizu's voice rings out in the office. You may leave now. There's a gentle dismissal in his tone. Aizawa nods towards Nizu, then he looks back to me. His dark eyes linger for a moment. He shifts his weight, testing his newly healed body. It's then that I realize that I haven't seen him blink yet. Finally, his voice emerges low and rough with as much emotion as a wet bag. Thank you, Arthur. The words hang in the air between us. I smile. It's my pleasure, I answer back, and I mean it too. He nods once more, a final acknowledgement passing between us. Then he turns and leaves the room, his footsteps barely audible on the floor. The door clicks behind him as he closes it, the sound soft. So, Nizu says as he flings himself to his chair with ease, the movement comical. He settles in, tiny paws steepling together. You can heal other people. I thought your quirk was Dragon Heart, not that I mind, but I can only get more intrigued about those weapons of yours. The statement hangs in the air, not quite a question but definitely an invitation. He's giving me an opening, a chance to explain, to share the truth about Excalibur and Avalon. About what they really are, what I really am. I say nothing. The words stick in my throat. I don't think I'm ready to tell him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I only hear our hearts beat in the room. Without those we're in complete silence. Said silence stretches. Nizu's expression doesn't change, except for a small almost imperceptible twitch of his whiskers, then I realize he understands, his next words proof of that. But I'm not going to push obviously. There's no judgment in his tone, just acceptance. I look down to Avalon and Excalibur, my fingers clutching the hilt like I usually did when I was nervous, but I'm not hardening my grip, I simply feel them there. Maybe my family could include him too. After the acceptance comes awkwardness. Turns out crying for a few seconds in front of another person doesn't help tension or anything. Who knew? I shift my weight from foot to foot. So. Nizu begins, breaking the silence. Do you want to say something, like how much can you heal? It looks like injuries are simple enough, Aizawa's legs were completely restored, after all, but what about blood loss or disease? Chronic conditions? Don't know, I reply. I'm wondering myself now. I had never grown sick since gaining Avalon, not so much as a cold or a headache. And I had never suffered any major blood loss. Most fights ended before I took any damage at all. But could Avalon cure cancer? Heal genetic disorders? I genuinely don't know. Well then, I cough, the sound rough and tired, I finally speak up. I'm gonna go back to bed. See you, tomorrow. Today? What time is it anyway? 3:04. Then today, see you later today, Nizu. Bye lad, Nizu says warmly. I turn and leave. Narration POV. After Arthur left Nizu's office, Nizu himself sits on his chair, reclining back and forth in a slow rhythm. His mind clearly elsewhere. So he can heal, he muttered to himself, the words barely above a whisper in the empty office. Would he be able to heal All Might? The question hangs in the air. All Might's injury, the wound that had carved away his power, his time, his very future as the symbol of peace, could it be undone? And even if it did, would it matter? All Might had already passed one for all All Might had were its last embers. Although could the embers be reignited? But I don't want to make him feel like I'm using him, Nizu continues, his voice troubled. He had taken him out of the vigilante life because he had seen him as kindred spirit. Arthur had a heroic heart, impossible strength and unmatched abilities, but he was still a child. He didn't want to implicate Arthur in a grand scheme, he wanted him lead a happy, healthy, fulfilling life, but what did Arthur consider happy? I should probably ask All Might first, Nizu concludes, nodding to himself. Then Arthur himself. Nizu grabs his phone once more from his vest, the device tiny in his paws. He scrolls through contacts until landing on All Might's phone number. His finger hovers over the call button. Then he hesitates. It's late, or early, depending on perspective. And for the first time in a long time, Nizu feels troubled. It always seems to be that way when it came to Arthur. Tomorrow, he mutters, setting the phone down on his desk. I'll ask him tomorrow. In another place entirely, far from Yue's halls and Nizu's careful contemplations, a room barely lit by the cold glow of multiple monitors exists in shadow. A man sits within this darkness, his face deformed beyond recognition by old injuries that should have killed him years ago. Scars twist and pull at flesh. His face is a ruin, except for his mouth that seemed to be in a constant enlarged grin. Monitors lay in front of him, each displaying different feeds. The only sound in said room is that of his finger, tapping against his chair. Tap. 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 A habit even the man himself didn't know he had. One of the monitors, positioned at eye level, shows a bar, dingy and dark even by the standards of the criminal underworld. In which, only two people lay, their figures grainy but recognizable. Tamura Shigaraki and Kurogiri. His disciples. His successors. His future, perhaps. He has grown quieter, the man says, his voice rasping through damaged vocal cords. That is good. His eyes lock onto Shigaraki more specifically, studying every detail visible on the grainy feed. His gaze travels down to Shigaraki's left arm, more specifically, the place where his left arm should be, where now only an empty sleeve hangs, pinned uselessly against his side. The loss has changed him. Tempered him. The loss of his arm has taught him what all for one's words never could, that actions have consequences, that heroes would do anything to stave them off. After all, what more insane person could there be than one that would sacrifice themselves for others? No, all heroes, true heroes, were insane. The men fervently believe that. Heroes believe they have a certain morality tucked away. They think they are better than villains. When really they were less. But that boy's quirk seems to be troubling, he continues, his tone shifting. His eyes move to another monitor, slightly upturned from the one that showed the bar. This screen is brighter, displaying a frozen image from a very public event. There a simple video of the sports festival loops, the same sequence playing over and over again. Arthur Pendragon moving with impossible speed. The image stops, frozen on a frame that captures the boy mid-strike. Arthur Pendragon, all for one, says, speaking the name, like it would make the boy drop dead on the spot. You seem like you're going to be a thorn in my side. The boy is an anomaly. Too strong, too fast, too skilled for his age. That strength, that speed, he muses, leaning forward slightly, studying the frozen image with an intensity that borders on obsession. I can't be sure, but... His hand travels to the monitor slowly, almost reverently, fingers trembling with barely suppressed emotion. Anger. Frustration. Obsession. All mixed together. Are you the ninth, he whispers, as if wanting no one to hear him. Is that sword your original quirk? Could All Might have passed it on already? Could this boy, this Arthur Pendragon, be carrying the power that rightfully belongs to him? The possibility gnaws at all for one's mind. It would explain the strength, the speed, the raw physical prowess that seems to dwarf even experienced pro-heroes. But something doesn't fit. The sword complicates things. The uncertainty is maddening. A black tendril suddenly extends from his nails, the quirk activating on emotion. It shoots forward with vicious speed, smashing into the screen with enough force to shatter it completely. Glass and plastic and circuitry explode outward, sparks flying, the image of Arthur Pendragon fracturing into 1,000 pieces before winking out entirely. "I'll kill you all the same," All for One snarls, his voice dropping, "and take back what is mine." A giant screen suddenly turns on behind him, the light washing over the destroyed monitor and scattered debris. A doctor appears on it, his face oversized and distorted by the camera angle, eyes wide. "Master," the doctor begins, his voice pitched high with barely contained excitement, speaking in a manic and almost reverent manner. "I know who Arthur Pendragon is." "Speak," he commands. "He was someone who we were going to take in," the doctor explains, practically vibrating with the satisfaction of solved mysteries. "Years ago, when he was just a child in the system. His true name is Aki Tadashi and his quirk is Dragon Heart." Dragon Heart. All for One repeats, testing the name, turning it over in his mind. "It amplifies all his physical capabilities," the doctor continues, gesturing enthusiastically at something off-screen, presumably data and charts All for One cannot see. "Strength, speed, durability, healing, everything enhanced to superhuman levels. A multiplicative quirk rather than an additive one, which explains why his base capabilities are so extraordinary." "Are you sure?" All for One says flatly. "It's not quite a question. More of a demand." "Positive," the doctor replies without hesitation. "Some of his hair was on Nomo 2 after their encounter. I ran it multiple times, dozens of tests, actually. Triple-checked everything. The DNA is definitely his." All for One nods slowly. DNA doesn't lie. If the doctor has physical samples, has tested them thoroughly. "Have you analyzed his quirk factor?" All for One leans forward. This is the crucial test, the one that will tell him if his suspicions are correct. Does he have one for all? "That's the weird part," the doctor says, and now his manic excitement shifts into something more unsettled, more confused. "And why it took me so long to get back to you. He doesn't have a quirk factor." Silence. "He what?" All for One's voice drops dangerously low. "Yes," the doctor continues quickly, words tumbling over each other in his haste to explain. "He doesn't have a quirk factor. Or it would be better to say that his hair doesn't hold it anymore. It's almost like it died when it got cut off from the main body, almost like a protection of some kind, a biological failsafe. I have never seen anything like it in all my years of research." The doctor pauses, pulling up something on his screen, data, probably, readings and charts that All for One doesn't care to see. "The only reason why I believe that he had a quirk in the first place is because there is still a trace," he continues, his voice taking on that particular tone of scientific fascination. "It's unusable but it's there, like an echo left behind. Enough to identify that a quirk factor existed, but not enough to determine what said quirk was, the genetic material that would let me replicate or steal it has been neutralized somehow. Rendered inert. It's like the quirk factor self-destructs when separated from the living body." All for One sits back, processing this. A quirk with built-in protection against DNA analysis. Against his own power to steal quirks from genetic material. That's incredibly lucky on Arthur's part. What of his sword then? All for One asks, redirecting the conversation to the other mystery. "It's just a simple sword. If the quirk is Dragon Heart and nothing more, then what of that golden blade?" "It seems so," the doctor replies, though he sounds uncertain. "At least, from what I can determine from the footage and Shigaraki's reports. There's no indication it's a quirk manifestation, it appears to be a physical object, something he carries rather than generates. But without examining it directly. Then what of the light that Shigaraki spoke of?" The question comes out harsh, demanding. There has to be an explanation, something that makes sense of what he's seen. "Perhaps he's able to amplify the sword with his Dragon Heart as well," the doctor suggests, warming to the hypothesis. "If his quirk enhances all his physical capabilities, who's to say it can't enhance objects he's in contact with? The light could be another application of his quirk working through the blade, channeling that enhancement into a concentrated attack. I'd have to get my hands on it and the boy to be sure, of course. Direct examination would answer so many questions." All for One considers this. It's plausible. Quirk awakening had been a phenomenon he had studied. If Dragon Heart can enhance the body, perhaps it can enhance tools as well. It would explain the sword's cutting power, at least, but still doubt lingers. How is Nomo 2? "Fine," the doctor reports, relief evident in his voice. "No permanent damage done to him. The regeneration took a few hours longer than normal, but full recovery has been achieved long ago. All systems nominal." "Good," the man says, his tone suggesting wheels turning, plans forming. His gaze shifts once more to the empty sleeve on Shigaraki visible on the other monitor, comparing. Shigaraki could not regenerate, at least not yet. At least it seems like it was a good experience for Shigaraki. I think we'll be able to speed up making him my vessel because of this. Master, are you sure about that? The doctor begins, uncertainty creeping into his voice. Shigaraki dash. Yes, the man interrupts, his voice carrying absolute certainty, absolute authority. There's no room for argument in that single syllable. I'm sure. Even though he's quieter, his hatred seems to have grown beyond childish whims. He'll be a good test run. Now even the doctor looks confused, his expression visible on the screen shifting to uncertainty. Test run. Yes, all for one confirms, his ever-present smile spreading even more, cracking the skin around his lips. I believe some of my plans need some changing. Just a bit. This Aki Tadashi has grown into a bigger variable than I thought possible. Plans laid over decades may need adjustment. Timelines may need to shift. But that's fine. He's been patient for over a century, he can be patient a bit longer. Everything will fall, and rise again under his control. As it should be. As it already had been. A/N, sup dudes and dudettes, we got some villainy in here mwahaha. It's long overdue to get some villain POV cause Arthur absolutely is making big shifts to AFO's plans. I mean the guy can speed blitz and kill AFO in under a microcosm if he had the heart for it lol. AFO should be worried, even though he won't say he is. Oh, and AFO thinking that Shigaraki is quieter because of growth and not because he's fucking traumatized is a distinction only a psychopath like AFO couldn't have made lol. That's pretty much it for today. Send those stones if you want more, we gotta climb those rankings. THX for reading. Hero names are coming up next. Author out. Chapter 62, FIC Ideas, please vote. 1. V in One Piece. Synopsis, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. But what of the men? I know his name was Tristan, but who was he really? What was he like? We are told to remember the idea, not the men, because a man can fail, he can be caught, he can be killed and forgotten, but an idea can still change the world. I have witnessed firsthand the power of ideas, I've seen people kill in the name of ideas, and die defending them. But you cannot kiss an idea, cannot touch it, or hold it. Ideas do not bleed, they do not feel pain, they do not love. And it is not an idea I miss, it is a man. A man that made me remember the 5th of November. A man that I will never forget. A/N, since Luffy is taking his sweet time taking down the government, how about we give an actual anarchist a shot? This one actually has the largest legroom of chapters, between 200 to 300 lol. Also sneak peek, but the woman monologuing in the synopsis is Nico Robin. 2. Danmachi, Reaper of Orario. Synopsis, Wrath. Sing-O, Goddess of the Wrath of Darrow Andromedas, Reaper of Orario. Murderous. Doomed. Who cost the people of Orario countless lives. Hurling down to the house of Hades so many sturdy souls, and left their bodies to rot as feasts for wolves and crows. A/N, actual synopsis would be something like a dude reincarnates in Orario in the Dark Ages, 8 years before canon, deals with that whole shabackle, and he isn't super op, but he is psychopathic, charismatic, and really doesn't want to die again. This one is also going to be pretty long, around 150 to 180. 3. Percy Jackson, The Nine. Synopsis, we are the muses, goddesses of the arts and proclaimers of heroes like the Nine. However, we must first go back. Thousands of years ago. Back when the world was new, and planet Earth was down on its luck. And everywhere, gigantic brutes called Titans ran amok. It was a nasty place. There was a mess wherever you stepped. Where chaos raved, and earthquakes and volcanoes never slept. Who? Say it, girlfriend. And then along came Zeus. He hurled his thunderbolt, he zapped, locked those suckers in a vault, they're trapped. And, on his own, stopped chaos in its tracks, and that's the gospel truth. The guy was too type A to just relax, and that's the world's first dish. Yeah, baby. Zeus tamed the globe while still in his youth. Though, honey, it may seem impossible, that's the gospel truth. On MT Olympus, life was neat, and smooth as sweet vermouth. Ah. Though, honey, it may seem impossible. That's the gospel truth. A/N, story of a demigod in Percy Jackson with multiple personalities. This is the one I deleted but still have it in my Google Docs. Again around the 250 mark. 4. Monkey Kid in DC, Young Justice. Synopsis, Journey to the West. Nah. This is Journey in the West, let's rick shit up. A/N, MC is a disciple to the Monkey King, mostly chaotic good. I say mostly cause he has a small arc where he gets passionate about a villain and kinda wants to be their sidekick, he thinks it's metal. This one is also the only one I don't have an ending for. I thought about writing it in a similar version to the actual Journey to the West, a bunch of thinly connected fights and arcs. 5. A Song of Gold and Glory. Synopsis: Men are haunted by the vastness of eternity, and so we ask ourselves. Will our actions echo across the centuries? Will strangers hear our names long after we're gone and wonder who we were? How bravely we fought, how fiercely we loved. If they ever tell my story, let them say I walked with giants. Men rise and fall like the winter wheat, but these names will never die. Let them say I lived in the time of Daenerys, mother of dragons. Let them say I lived in the time of Achilles. A/N, the synopsis says it all: Achilles and his Myrmidons in the War of the Five Kings. They are a group of sellswords from Essos hired by Tywin the hypocritical lion to do some shenanigans. 100 chapters more or less. Final A/N. I have a few more FIC ideas, but they aren't really super into the outline process, still I'll name drop them here. Benimaru in Avatar. Twin Star Exorcist, Miko's Return. Pirates of the Caribbean, A Thief's Tale. Fate/Second Holy Grail War. Marvel, Randy Cunningham 9th Grade Ninja. Adventure Time, New Haven, Son of Joseph Giovanni, story with Marceline to rebuild humanity. Tales of Demons and Gods, My Journey. Thank you. Chapter 63, Names New and Old. Arthur POV. I sit in my chair, I hear the rain from outside pitter-patter against the window and grounds, it reminds me of my shower. Kaminari stretches his hands overhead beside me, his joints popping. Can't believe we're getting recognized by people on the streets, Kaminari says with a wide smile, almost as electrifying as his quirk. Yesterday some kids asked me for an autograph. Me. It finally feels like we're heroes. He pauses, turning to look at me. Though I guess you're used to it, being famous and all. I shift uncomfortably in my seat, I no longer grip Excalibur's hilt like I used to, even though a small part of me wants to. I never liked cameras, so no, I'm not really used to getting recognized. I don't think he even goes out of UA, Sue says as she also leans back in her chair, her large eyes blinking slowly. How'd he get recognized, Ribbit? True that, Mina adds, spinning her pencil between her fingers. You should get out more art, not just coming out with us to karaoke, but I don't know, feel the sun on your skin, pick up a hobby or something. You got a good voice, why don't you become an idol? I'll be your backup dancer, yo. Kirishima leans forward from behind me, his sharp teeth showing in an enthusiastic grin. That's actually not a bad idea. You could be like that American hero who does concerts. Can we please not talk about this, I reply, feeling heat creep up my neck. I don't like talking about myself. I'm already too embarrassed to say anything else. Thankfully, they do stop talking about me, but not because of my request. The door slides open and Aizawa-sensei walks into the room. Yes, walks. I still can't believe it worked. The healing through Avalon actually worked. My eyes track him, searching for anything that could show me he is still wounded, maybe a limp. But no, he's perfectly fine. I smile because of it. Aizawa-sensei, Midoriya mutters from his seat. You're okay. Your legs. The rest of the class seems to notice it too now. Some gasp, others ask questions. Yes, recovery girl went a bit overboard with the healing, Aizawa says dismissively, his eyes as tired as always. But, how? Tokoyami asks from his corner. I thought you said your legs were too damaged. That the nerve damage done was irreversible. I'm fine, that is all. Now let's stop talking about me and focus on the lesson. Today's hero informatics period is a little special. He pauses for effect, and I see Kaminari wonder if we have a pop quiz. I hope not. You need code names. Time to pick your hero identities. Fuck yeah. Bakugo explodes from his seat, his palms crackling. The classroom erupts. Almost everyone rises from their seats, shouting and cheering. Mina actually jumps onto her desk, pumping her fist in the air. Kirishima and Kaminari high-five so hard the sound echoes. Even the Yayorozu and Todoroki, the more composed of the class, smile a bit. I'm a little taken aback by the intensity of their excitement. I had never thought much about my hero name when I was a vigilante, they had called me Arthur and I had accepted in kind. Aizawa's hair suddenly levitates, floating around his head. My instincts scream at me. He's activated his quirk, and with it, everyone falls silent instantly, calm in their chairs. This is related to the pro hero draft picks that I mentioned last time in class, he continues, his hair settling back down. Normally students don't have to worry about the draft yet. Not until their second or third year actually, but your class is different. In fact, by extending offers to first years like you, pros are essentially investing in your potential. You have 3 years instead of the usual 2 to prove yourselves worthy of their faith. So this is why Nizu had said I should stand out in the festival. Had he somehow orchestrated extending offers to first years because of me? No, that seems too self-centered. Then again, with Nizu, you never really know. Any offers can be rescinded before your graduation, Aizawa warns, his voice taking on that edge that means he's deadly serious. So make good impressions. Maintaining a professional relationship is just as important as establishing one. Now, let me show you the offers each of you received. He pulls a remote from his desk drawer. With a click, a hologram materializes above the board, blue light coalescing into numbers and names. The numbers appear one by one, starting from the top. Arthur Pendragon, 8. The number seems to hang in the air, impossibly large. I hear several sharp intakes of breath around me. Shoto Todoroki, 4. Katsuki Bakugo, 2. Fumikage Tokoyami. More names and numbers cascade down the list, but they're significantly smaller. I see Toru make a small fist pump when her name appears with 8 offers. Mina got 4, Kirishima got 2. Kaminari got 2 as well. In past years, it's been more spread out, Aizawa says, his tone as monotone as ever. But as you can see, there's a pretty big gap this time. I notice Midoriya's name is conspicuously absent from the list. Despite placing in the top 8 after his loss to Todoroki, he received 0 offers. The way he's gripping his pencil tells me he noticed too. Breaking his fingers repeatedly during matches apparently didn't inspire confidence in the agencies. Despite these results, you'll all be interning with pros for the next week, Aizawa continues. Got it. Even those of you who didn't get any offers will have agencies to choose from. You all experienced real combat in the incident at USJ, but it's still valuable to see how pros operate in their daily work. I feel several pairs of eyes land on me at the mention of USJ. I try not to mind them, but I am still reminded of the Nomu. But more importantly, Aizawa says, pulling something from under his yellow sleeping bag, these hero names will likely be temporary, but take them seriously or... The door slides open with perfect dramatic timing, and a familiar voice fills the room with theatrical flair. You'll have hell to pay later. Midnight saunters through the doorway. What you pick today could be your codename for life. Yes, Midnight will have final approval over your names, Aizawa says, already climbing into his sleeping bag with practiced efficiency. It's not my forte. A codename tells the world what you represent, so take this seriously. With those words, he zips himself up completely and falls to the floor with a soft thump. Within seconds, I can hear his breathing even out into sleep. How does he do that? Midnight opens a drawer from the desk and pulls out a stack of whiteboards and markers, handing them to the first person in each row. They take one and pass the rest back. I uncap the marker with a pop, and feel the smoothness of the whiteboard. It feels nice. What should my name be? Arthur. That's what everyone knows me as, but is that who I want to be as a hero? It was the name given to me by the media during my vigilante days, inspired by Excalibur and my apparent knightly behavior. But does holding on to it mean I'm not really moving forward? I tap the marker against the board, creating tiny black dots that I quickly erase with my thumb. Around me, I can hear the excited scratching of markers on whiteboards, occasional giggles, and frustrated sighs as people cross out attempts. All right, students. Midnight calls out after about 10 minutes. Who among you is ready to share? Aoyama practically leaps from his seat. He struts to the front with the confidence I've seen only Aoyama have. The shining hero. My name is, I can't stop twinkling. He reveals his board with a flourish. Mon Amos, you cannot deny my sparkle. The class goes silent for a moment, processing. It's certainly memorable, Midnight says, tapping her chin. How about taking out the I and making cannot into can't? Flows better. It's stunning, mademoiselle. More students begin going up, emboldened by Aoyama's enthusiasm. Tsuyu chooses Froppy, which gets immediate approval and emboldens several classmates. Kirishima goes with Red Riot after his hero Crimson Riot. Mina bounces up with Alien Queen but is told no. Kaminari chooses Charge Bolt after crossing out what looked like Jamming Way, a name Jiro advised him out of, and by advised it was more like insulted into changing it, and Todoroki simply writes Shoto, causing Midnight to ask if he's sure he doesn't want something more creative. It's my name, he says simply. It's what I want to be known as. Soon, only a few of us remain seated. Ida, Midoriya, Bakugo, and myself. My whiteboard now has several crossed-out attempts. I've thought of a few. Noble Hero, Caliban has been my first but it felt a little pretentious. Knight Hero, Pendragon was my second. I finally write my decision and stand. The walk to the front feels longer than it should. Finally I am in front, and I turn the board around. The Knight Hero, Arthur. Midnight tilts her head, her whip coiling at her side. So heroic, so capturing, but also so old. Wasn't that also your vigilante name? Yes, it was, I answer. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Even though I was a vigilante, that's where my hero journey began. It's also my actual name, and it's what the public already knows me as. Everything falls quite naturally into place. I don't want to run from who I was, I want to build on it. Midnight considers this for a long moment. Well said. I like it. Approved. I head back to my seat, passing Ida as he walks up. His board simply reads Tenya, his real name. Finally, Midoriya approaches the front, his board clutched against his chest. When he turns it around, it reads Deku. Are you sure? Midnight asks. Someone changed the meaning for me, Midoriya says, glancing at Uraraka. Now it sounds like you can do it. To me. As if awakened by magic like Sleeping Beauty, Aizawa's eyes snap open and he emerges from his sleeping bag like some kind of caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Now that everyone's decided on their hero names, we can go back to talking about your upcoming internships. Those of you who received offers will choose from among them. For the rest, we'll be providing you with a list of 40 agencies that have agreed to work with UA students. He begins handing out packets, thick ones for those with offers, thinner ones for those without. Mine lands on my desk with a substantial thump, nearly 9,000 agencies summarized within. I guess this was going to take longer than I thought. Narration POV. In a darkened alley across the city, a man crouches over a fallen figure. His tongue extends unnaturally, licking blood from the edge of a worn katana. His eyes widen at the taste. You heroes have poisoned this country, he speaks to his paralyzed victim, whose eyes dart frantically, the only part of his body still capable of movement. You have desecrated what it means to be a hero. So much so that a child, a mere child, decided he could do better than all of you so-called professionals. The man rises, his blade sways as he places it above the hero's head. And he succeeded. He succeeded so easily it's almost laughable. He crouches again, bringing his face close to his victim's, close enough that the hero can stare into his own eyes. All Might is the past, an ideal of what you should have been but failed to achieve. Arthur represents the future, an ideal of what others will strive to become. But I am the present. I am no ideal, no symbol. I am the present's knife, its vendetta, its reckoning. I will cut away the rod of false heroes so the future can grow untainted. The katana rises. The paralyzed victim's eyes widen, he tries to scream but his paralyzed vocal cord fail him. The blade falls. A wet squelch echoes through the alley as blood spreads across the concrete in dark rivers. The man raises the now red katana to his face, his tongue extending to taste the fresh blood, savoring it. I am the hero killer. I am Stain. And this society's false heroes will know my blade before Arthur's future can truly begin. A/N. I've been rereading the Red Rising series and it has influenced my writing, fuck. I can't write in past tense right now, only in present as you can probably tell. It's grating but I can't control myself, maybe I should reread Asoyaf or Aragon or something else written in past tense lol. Author out. Chapter 64, Internship begins. Arthur POV. I walk off the train, my enhanced hearing is bombarded by the murmurs of the crowds, the whirring of the train, the hundreds of heartbeats in my vicinity. There are some cons to enhanced senses, believe it or not. My grip tightens on the suitcase as I try to tune it out, it takes me a second, in that second I almost crush the handlebar of the suitcase. I try not to think about it, instead settling on the agency's offers from yesterday. It had been a tough choice. I really couldn't choose between all of them. The offers had come flooding in after the sports festival, more than I'd ever expected. I even got offers from all the top 10 heroes except for 2. Endeavor and of course All Might himself. The absence of Endeavor's offer didn't surprise me, it would have been nice to learn under number 2, but I'm sure he had his own qualifications. As for All Might, since he was teaching at UA, I'm sure he wasn't the one running his agency anymore. I thought back to almost a year ago, when I had first met All Might in Nisa's office, that awkward meeting where I'd learned that he was going to have successor. I smile, I still couldn't believe Midoriya was All Might's successor, not that I was 100% certain since I hadn't asked him, but I was as close to certain as a person can be. Mirio had been in the meeting too, with his infectious smile, and who was the other guy? My memory clicked into place. Oh yeah, Sir Naite, with those severe features and that gaze that kind of reminded me of Aizawa-sensei. Maybe he was the one running the agency now. It'd make sense, he was All Might's former sidekick if I'm remembering right. But in the end, I'd chosen Ryukyu. The 9th-ranked hero, someone Mina had admired, someone Nijire had spoken so highly of during our evening talks at UA. A hero through and through. My kind of person. Arthur. My thoughts get interrupted by a voice that cuts through the fact that I'm tuning almost everything out. My eyes focus as through the crowd a girl with blue periwinkle hair is waving at me. She's bouncing slightly on her boots, wearing a baggy shirt and jeans. Nijire, I say back as I wave hello from far away, before beginning to walk over to her, weaving through the crowd. Even without using my speed, my enhanced spatial awareness thankfully made it so I wouldn't bump into anyone. Still, not being able to use my quirk whenever I want isn't great. Every instinct tells me to just burst forward, to cover the distance in a fraction of a second. But restraint. Always restraint. Finally we stand in front of each other. She is a little taller than I am, something she never fails to tease me about, so I have to look up to her. You're gonna love it in the Ryukyu agency, trust me. Her words come out in an excited rush. We have Yokohama all to ourselves. Well, there are a few other minor agencies scattered around, but they normally coordinate with us for major incidents, so yeah, we have the city to ourselves. Oh. And the agency building is amazing. It has the most advanced training facilities in Japan. They even rival UA, and the view from the break room is incredible. You can see all the way to the harbor, and dash. I nod as she excitedly speaks, a small smile forming on my face. She seemingly can't stop. Her mouth looks like it's trying to keep up with all the thoughts racing through her mind, words tumbling over each other in her enthusiasm. It's infectious, just like Mirio's own smile. I still couldn't believe I hadn't met the third person from the big three. That's your hero suit, right? She says while looking at the suitcase at my side, her eyes quite literally sparkling, maybe a side effect of her quirk. It is, I answer back as we finally make it out of the train station, the morning sun warming my skin. It felt nice. Can I take a picture of you in your hero suit later? I'm sure the round table is gonna love it. They've been going crazy since your sports festival win. Gentle Love even wrote a whole speech. I nod again. The mention of my fan club doesn't make me nervous anymore. Maybe it was because of how much Nijire showed me. Or the fact that the president of the club acted like two completely different people. Oh, and about the round table, they all were very thankful for the autographs. Some of them even framed them. There's this one member who goes by Excalibur Shrine who made this whole display case dash. Okay, that is a little creepy. There is no need for thanks, it was my pleasure, I interrupt gently, not really wanting to hear about shrines dedicated to my sword. Nijire pulls out her hand toward the street, and almost immediately a taxi stops in front of us, as if summoned by her gesture. It is almost entirely black, well-maintained, with a small company logo on the side. She pulls the door open. Juniors first, she says with a wide smile. I thank her and pop onto a seat, the leather creaking slightly under my weight as I slide to the far end. She sits down next to me, her knee briefly bumping against mine before she settles. I see the driver through the rearview mirror, cataloging his features automatically. A man, balding, around his 40s, hazel eyes with crinkles at the corners suggesting he smiles often, a well-groomed mustache covers his upper lip, round-rimmed glasses, and a pot belly that almost touches the steering wheel. There's a photo on his dashboard. It's a photo of All Might, but with the man's face instead of All Might's. A chuckle almost escapes my mouth, but I restrain myself. Yes, Nizu's teachings have done me well. Where to? The driver asks, his voice carrying a friendly Yokohama accent. They almost always ended their sentences with right. Nijire brightly smiles to the driver, leaning forward slightly. Ryukyu Agency, please. Ooh, the Dragon Hero's place. Okali dokali, should be about 15 minutes this time of day, right? There it is. With that we are off, the taxi pulling smoothly into traffic. The car falls into silence. I hear Nijire drum her fingers against her thigh, her legs wriggle in her seat, she seemingly has as little restraint as I do, it makes me smile. I decide to look out of the window, watching the city pass by at what feels like a crawl. Buildings slide past at a pace that makes my teeth itch. Then I realize why, we're going so slow. God, so unbearably slow. I could have made the trip 1,000 times by now. This was one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy going outside in civilian mode. I couldn't use my quirk freely, and had to constantly control myself, keep my reactions human, my speed normal. It was in one word, exhausting. Every fiber of my being wanted to fall back into what it had always known. And while I was getting better at restraining myself, Nizu's lessons had helped immensely. I didn't want to risk hearing something wrong, instinctively intervening and throwing away all that Nizu had done to legitimize me. But now, for this 1 week, I wouldn't need to control myself as much. When we made it to the agency, it would be almost like being a vigilante again, except legal. I couldn't wait. My enhanced hearing picks up a slight acceleration in Nijire's heartbeat, she's about to ask something. But before she can, the driver glances at us through the mirror and tries to make some conversation. So, Ryukyu Agency, right? His tone is friendly. You both look pretty young to be heroes, you're interning there, right? UA students, I'm guessing, right? Yes we are, Nijire replies cheerfully. 3rd year for me, 1st year for my friend here. Well then, you kids should definitely be careful, the driver's tone shifts, becoming more serious. This hero killer, Stain, has been popping up a lot more often, right? 3 heroes in the last month alone. He hasn't gone after interning students yet, thank God, but with psychos like that you never know, right? Stain. I had heard that name a few times during my vigilante career, mainly from word of mouth. Not a lot of concrete information, but recently. I remember after the sports festival, I remember overhearing Midoriya talking to Ida, whose brother Ingenium had been attacked by the villain. I looked down at Avalon resting at my hip, a thought crystallizing in my head. I should ask Ida where his brother is hospitalized. Now that I know Avalon can heal others, not just me, I could help. Ingenium was a good hero from everything I'd heard. And maybe while I'm at that hospital, I could heal a few other people too. I'm sure the doctors wouldn't mind, right? A grin spreads across my face. I can't wait. Don't worry, sir, Nijaya replies as she smacks her chest confidently, jolting me from my thoughts. We're plenty strong. Besides, Ryukyu's agency has one of the best safety records in Japan. Still, you be careful out there. The car slows, then comes to a complete stop, the engine idling quietly. We've arrived. Your total is 490 yen, the driver says, already pulling out his card reader. I bring out my wallet from my uniform jacket, feeling the stiff leather. Grabbing the debit card Nizu had given me, still weird to think I have money now, and paying my half. The machine beeps cheerfully. Nijaya pays hers too. Good luck, the driver says. Thank you, both Nijaya and I reply, bowing our heads politely, after which we open the doors and get out of the car. The taxi drives off, leaving us on the pavement, standing in front of a huge building that stretches upward. It probably would be a good building to jump off of. Its whole facade is polished brown stone, with dark-tinted glass windows. Straight in the center, at least 3 stories tall, is a billboard with Ryukyu in her hero costume, her dragon features partially transformed, advertising her clothing line Dragoir. How I knew said clothing line? Well, for one, Nijaya had mentioned it approximately 47 times in our conversations. For two, the words were written on said poster in gigantic silver letters that probably could have been seen for miles, much less my enhanced eyes. Impressive, right? Nijaya says, noticing my stare. Wait until you see the inside. We both begin to walk towards the entrance. The doors are massive, glass and chrome, and they open automatically with a soft hiss, revealing the interior. But the first thing that I see first is not the impressive modern architecture or the awards displayed on the walls or the reception desk, or sidekicks, or even Ryukyu herself. No, what I first is 2 balls of red eyes, bright and feral, eyes I recognize. The eyes widen as they land on me, recognition dawning on them. The next thing I see is a grin, as wild as the eyes. Then, boom. A/N, yep, he has chosen the Ryukyu agency. There are a multitude of reasons, but the main one is that Nijaya couldn't stop glazing it to get Arthur to come. Wait, that sounds wrong. Either way, yeah, Ryukyu is top 8 if I remember correctly. She drops to 9th after All Might retires. Also, someone who has been gone for a long time has finally made her appearance and she's got an itch only Arthur can scratch. Wait, that sounds wrong too. That's pretty much it. Send those stones, cause we're lagging behind. Author out. Chapter 65, A Feral Rabbit and Kindred Spirits, well, kindred dragons. Boom. The world slowed to a crawl as my enhanced senses kicked into overdrive. A leg, thick with corded muscle and tensed like a coiled spring, hung suspended mere inches from my face, separated from crushing my skull, or at least trying to, solely by Excalibur still sheathed inside Avalon. The impact sent paper spiraling through the air. The sonic boom rippled outward, a visible wave of force that shattered the glass doors behind me along with the nearest windows into fragments while spider webbing cracks through the rest. I could hear each individual shard hitting the floor. It was unpleasant. Lady Mirko, I said, keeping my voice steady as I bowed my head slightly, maintaining eye contact through the gesture. Nice to see you again, under better circumstances than before, thankfully. She said nothing, her expression however said too much. That grin of hers blew into something indescribable. It stretched across her face, too wide to be entirely human, all teeth and barely contained violence. Her crimson eyes found my blue. She still had the same look as before, the one where we first met, the look of someone who lived for the fight, who relished combat. She really did make me wonder if she was related to Bakugo. Maybe they were distant cousins. She pushed against Avalon, her legs still pressed against my defense, trying to drive me backward through sheer force. The floor beneath my feet groaned in protest. I took a step back. Was she stronger than before? The muscles in her leg rippled, and I could feel the raw power behind them. She actually seemed as strong as I was without mana burst, though my instincts told me I was still faster. Had she been training specifically for a rematch? The thought was both flattering and concerning. She fell back to give us some space, before rushing at me once more, her powerful legs launching her into the air. Time seemed to dilate as she rose, her white hair streaming behind her. She twisted at the apex of her jump, bringing her leg down in an axe kick that would have split concrete. I raised Avalon to meet her, the impact reverberating through my arms. The ground under me cracked, no, it cratered, tiles exploding outward from the point of impact. Without missing a beat, another kick came from the side, her body pivoting impossibly fast. I parried, the force sending vibrations up Avalon. Thankfully Avalon was stronger than I was. Both she and Excalibur could take much more damage than I ever could. The sidekicks and staff members of Ryukyu's agency pressed themselves against the walls. I could hear their hearts racing, smell the adrenaline flooding their systems. She dashed toward me once more. She jumped, turning her body in the air. Her legs found the ceiling, and pushed. The ceiling tiles cracked and fell like hail as she launched herself downward. Another sonic boom reverberated through the hall, this one strong enough that some people even fell to the floor. The rest of the people around us clutched their ears. Mirko clenched her fist, her trajectory aimed directly at my face. I could see the micro-expressions on her face. Why was she so damn happy? Did she want to break my jaw? What did I do? I looked around and saw the danger I was placing these people in, so I decided to end it. My heart thrummed. Mana burst, flooding my veins in a singular moment, time slowing even further. I was at my strongest right now and far above what Mirko could handle. I took a single step back. Her fist inched closer, cutting through the air. Just as her knuckles were about to meet my skin, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from her body, I grabbed her wrist with the hand that wasn't holding Excalibur. The sudden stop sent shockwaves up her arm. She stayed dangling in the air for a fraction of a second, her momentum completely arrested. But Mirko wasn't one to be caught off guard for long. Using my grip as a pivot point, she twisted her entire body, her leg sweeping around in an arc aimed at my neck. It was a beautiful move, the kind that probably even I wouldn't be able to do. It didn't matter though. I activated Avalon. All of this had happened in 1.2 seconds. Her leg met my skin with the force of a freight train. But nothing happened. Not even a blowback. It was nice to be separated from the world if only for a moment. Her smile widened, showing even more teeth. Then came the roar, not from Mirko as you'd be expecting but from someone else. Mirko. My heart thrummed at the voice. It carried a sense of familiarity. Mirko's bunny ears, which had been standing straight up like antennae during our fight, suddenly flattened against her head. She broke my grip with a violent twist and burst through the door, leaving a Mirko-shaped hole in what had been a perfectly good wall. From the stairs, a woman came running to the floor, her footsteps heavy. Ryukyu. The dragon hero. Even before I saw her, I could feel her, a kindred spirit. A brother from another mother, as Mina would say. Mirko. Stop breaking my stuff. The familiarity was definitely coming from her. Ryukyu, the dragon hero, stood at the top of the stairs, her chest heaving with exertion and anger. Her blonde hair was slightly disheveled, as if she'd been in the middle of something important when she'd heard the commotion. I stared at Nijire at my side, who still hadn't seemed to notice the full situation, her ears evidently ringing from the repeated sonic booms. I thankfully had already learned to instinctively tune them out, my body adapting to combat conditions without conscious thought. I deactivated Avalon, returning to the physical realm fully. Ryukyu jogged to the doors, her heeled boots clicking against what remained of the floor tiles. She surveyed the damage, the broken glass that clattered across the floor like deadly diamonds, the cracked walls, the cratered floor, the hole Mirko had left in her exit. Her hands balled into fists, her knuckles going white. She seemed about to explode, and I could actually see wisps of smoke curling from her nostrils. That woman has no regard for others. I can't believe she's my only friend. Fuck. The curse came out so much out of left field that several of the sidekicks flinched. It was clearly not the composed demeanor they were used to from their boss. Ryukyu-senpai. Nijire muttered, blinking in confusion. It seemed this wasn't a side Ryukyu showed often, because when Ryukyu met Nijire's eyes, she pulled herself together with visible effort. She straightened her blazer, smoothed down her hair, and coughed delicately into her hand. Then she snapped her fingers, the sound clean. My instinct screamed at me for some reason, every nerve suddenly on high alert. Then a man appeared as if from nowhere, materializing beside her like a ghost. It intrigued me immensely. Invisibility. Teleportation. Call our insurance company, she said, her voice back to its professional tone. Tell them it's a code M. The man nodded without a word and disappeared just as suddenly as he'd appeared. I filed that away for later consideration. Ryukyu walked over to us, her movement slow and deliberate, as if she was using the time to compose herself further. She stared out into the streets through the shattered windows, where a crowd was beginning to form. Would you like me to bring her back? I asked Ryukyu, who still hadn't seemed to fully notice my presence, lost in her frustration. No, it's fine, she's long gone by now. Her eyes squinted as if trying to track Mirko's path through the city. I'll make her pay for all this when I catch her. Every yen. She paused, finally turning to address Nijire properly. Nijire, what happened? Did Endeavor show up again? The question caught me off guard. Endeavor? Did the number 2 also have to deal with Mirko's battle-hungry nature? Was all the normally talkative Nijire could reply, still holding her ear and looking dazed. Ryukyu-senpai, I interrupted, stepping forward slightly. I know what happened. Her eyes turned to me, and they widened, recognition dawning on them. Arthur Pendragon, right? She asked mid-sigh, the exhaustion clear in her voice. Indeed I am. She told me about your little scuffle. She rubbed her temple with 2 fingers. I can guess what happened. She started a fight. Created a sonic boom, broke my windows, traumatized my staff, etc., etc. Am I right? You're remarkably accurate. Damn it, I shouldn't have had her here. So much for wanting to spend quality time together. She shook her head ruefully. How did she even get a whiff that you had accepted to intern here? Nizu, maybe. No, he wouldn't have done that, would he? Then again, the principal did have a particular sense of humor. Then again, Mirko hadn't seemed prepared for our encounter if her first reaction was anything to go by. Was I and by extension Ryukyu simply this unlucky? Are you okay? She added, finally looking me over for injuries. I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, I thought you'd be, she added as she quieted down, but that only lasted for a second before she turned back to the destroyed entrance. Fuck you, Mirko. The scream startled everyone, Nijire, myself, and the few people on this floor who had gotten out of their stupor from the short yet intense fight that had just occurred. Several of them scrambled for cover, thinking another attack was coming. Ryukyu's clawed hand traveled through her blonde hair once more, as if doing it calmed her, maybe it did. Sorry, she gets on my nerves sometimes. She acts like a child. A destructive, expensive child who doesn't understand the concept of property damage or insurance premiums. Yes, she's quite the feral rabbit. I concur. Thank you, she said in a sigh that seemed to come from her very soul. Finally, someone who agrees with me. Do you know how many times she's done this? Just shown up, picked a fight with whoever caught her interest, and left me to deal with the aftermath. Nijire still hadn't said anything substantial. Her eyes simply darted between Ryukyu and myself. I could feel her eyes sporadically landing on me. I'm fine, Ryukyu said, once more passing her clawed hand through her hair. So much for first impressions, she added in a whisper that my enhanced hearing picked up easily. Indeed, I replied, extending my own sympathies. This was not how I wanted this week to go, much less start. I'd hoped for something more conventional. Ryukyu turned to me, a small smile finally breaking through her frustration. Very well then, let's have your internship begin properly, despite this chaos. She gestured around at the destruction. I have 2 propositions for you. Nijire and I's patrol is coming up soon, but I know you are who you are, and who you are is someone who has been doing this for a long time. She actually had a proud look, maybe I wasn't the only one who thought we were kindred spirits. So you can go on your own for today if you'd prefer. Take the right side of the city, we'll be taking the left. Or you can join us, get the full intern experience. So, what do you want? I looked at the still slightly befuddled Nijire. Then down at my suitcase where my hero costume lay waiting. Finally, my gaze landed on the now shattered glass doors that led to the outside, where a city sprawled to the horizon. Can I really go out alone? The question came out more eager than I'd intended. Indeed. You've proven yourself more than capable, and honestly, after seeing you handle Mirko without breaking a sweat, I'd be insulting you to suggest otherwise. It had been so long since I'd had that freedom, the simple autonomy to patrol without someone watching over my shoulder. And she was giving it to me just like that. This had been the best decision I could have made. Then yes, I'd prefer to go at it alone. Change into your costume then. Your intern license is at the desk, just ask for it. She pulled out her phone, checking something. I'm letting you go alone only for the morning, and only this city, you hear me. If I hear even a whiff of you going outside the city, consider your internship here finished. Come back at 13:30 for lunch. After that, you'll be patrolling with me. I want to see how you operate. Understood. Each word she spoke made my heart firm with that strange familiarity. She really did seem kindred somehow. Maybe because of our quirks. The dragon recognizing the one who carried a dragon's heart. Weird, but not unpleasant. Understood, I finally replied, then turned to give Nijire a proper goodbye. See you at lunch, Nijire. I'll do whatever pose you'd like me to do in my suit then, promise. You really don't need to, Arthur. Especially not after all this. She gestured vaguely at the destruction. I said I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it, I replied with a genuine smile. A knight keeps his word, above all else. And then I was off, grabbing my suitcase and heading to change, my steps quick with melancholy. God, I was so freaking excited to be back on patrol. To do what I was trained to do. To do what I had been born to do. A/N, Ryukyu may feel a little OOC, but that's cause we really don't see much from her. All we see is her being a nice person and taking responsibility for actions from others. She's well-meaning, but then how is Mirko her best friend? She has to be a little crazy too, I'm sure of it. It's just that she hides it well. You deserve to be sent to the fiery pits of hell. White-hot waves of searing hellfire will crash over your body and pour into your lungs so you boil from the inside out. Locusts will crawl up and into every orifice and wriggle through your mind, scratching at the back of your eyes. There will be no beginning, there will be no end, there will only be suffering. A knife slices at your Achilles heel, and a red-hot poker will be rammed up your arseholes on the hour, until, oh wait, there is no until, because it will never end. There is no time in hell. Phew, I think that is a good comeback. Have them read out this. Either way, I hope you all enjoyed this. Send those stones, I need them, LOL. THX for reading. Author out. Chapter 66, Back to Basics. Narration POV. In an alley between two office buildings, where the neon lights from the main street couldn't quite reach, a transaction was going down. Well, it couldn't really be called that, it looked more like a plea. Two men were talking in the dark. One of them, around his late 20s, was groveling at the other's feet. His knees scraped against the damp concrete, leaving dark patches on his already worn jeans. Snot and tears fell on the other man's shoes, black sneakers. The dealer seemed to be in his early 20s, wearing a baggy red hoodie along with designer jeans, fingerless gloves on his hands that did little to hide the unnatural sharpness of his nails. A metal case was at his side. The addict's hands trembled as he reached out, not quite touching the dealer's legs but hovering there, desperate and pathetic. He had track marks decorating his arms. "Please, give it to me, I'll do whatever you want." The words came out broken, punctuated by wet sniffles. "What I want is 5,000 yen. The dealer's voice was flat, bored even. He'd had this conversation 100 times before. The groveling man began, his voice cracking. "I don't have that. Please, anything else. I'll do it. I'll steal for you, I'll find other customers. Just one hit, just one to get me through. No." The dealer's fingernails extended slightly, sharpening into what looked like claws, his quirk manifesting with his irritation. "Now if you ask me again, I'll cut your tongue out, you hear me?" The groveling man backed away, his spine hitting the brick wall with a dull thud. His breathing came in short, panicked gasps. "Fucking addicts, I don't understand them," the dealer muttered, looking down at the pathetic figure before him with genuine disgust. "Have some self-control for fuck's sake. You're like animals, worse than animals. At least they have instincts worth following." Something shifted in the addict's eyes then, a breaking point. The man with his back to the wall suddenly opened his coat, and a knife glinted in the dark. It was a cheap thing, a kitchen knife, but a kitchen knife was still a knife. He thrust it forward toward the dealer with surprising speed. The dealer hadn't expected it. These junkies were usually too broken to fight back. He was too slow to react, his enhanced nails only halfway extended as the knife edged closer to his stomach. Time seemed to slow as the blade approached. A small hand clad in a gauntlet the color of moonlight suddenly appeared, wrapping around the addict's own hand with impossible gentleness, stopping the knife mere inches from flesh. "Stop," a voice suddenly spoke. Young, clear, it rang in both of the men's ears. They both looked toward the voice, and the dealer's blood ran cold. A boy. He wore full metal armor that should have been impossible to move in, yet he stood as if it weighed nothing. A sword rested at his side in an ornate scabbard, and a blue and gold cape flowed behind him. His eyes, a deep yet somehow clear blue, they entranced the mind. "Shit, sidekick," the dealer cursed, his mind whirring into action. He turned to run, product in hand, but only took a single step before realizing he couldn't move. The boy was grabbing his arm, when had he moved, the one holding the case of product. The grip wasn't painful, but it was absolute, like being held by a statue. "Please don't resist," the boy said, and it was then that it dawned on both the dealer and the addict. They knew who this was. The sword gave it away. Though only the dealer voiced it out, "Fuck. You're him. You're Arthur. Why the fuck are you out on the streets? You fuck said you were in UA. You should really control your language," Arthur said mildly, throwing the dealer against the wall with a casual motion that nevertheless knocked the wind from the man's lungs. He placed the addict at his side with equal ease, the knife now solely in Arthur's grip. The blade looked almost toy-like in his gauntlet hand. Arthur's enhanced senses catalogued everything about both men in an instant. The dealer's elevated heart rate. The addict's withdrawal symptoms, dilated pupils, excessive sweating, the constant scratching to his wrists. "Now then," Arthur said with a sigh. "Let's see how to deal with this situation. What's in the case?" "What do you think?" the dealer asked in a tone that would indicate confidence. He was quite the good actor, if only his heart didn't betray him. "Drugs most likely, but come on, I need some more information than that. Who's your supplier?" What kind of drug are we talking about here? The dealer remained quiet, his jaw clenched tight. He remained quiet. Arthur sighed again. With a casual squeeze, he crushed the knife in his grip, the metal screaming briefly before crumbling into fine dust that he let fall to the ground like silver snow. His hands were free for the case now, but his eyes, those impossible blue eyes, never left both men. He could track their heartbeats, their breathing, the minute muscle tensions that preceded movement. A single finger found the lock. Arthur tapped it lightly, with perhaps 0.1% of his strength. The lock exploded off the case, flying across the alley to embed itself in the building's brick wall, mere inches from the dealer's head. Bits of mortar rained down on his red hoodie. Fuck, kid. Watch where you're sending shit flying. The dealer's voice pitched high with fear. If you're not going to cooperate, please be quiet, Arthur said, his tone still conversationally polite as he pried the case open. The hinges groaned in protest before giving way. Arthur saw the addict's eyes fly to the contents in the case, pupils dilating further with naked want. Arthur's own eyes fell to the case's contents. 8 syringes lay in foam cushioning, filled with sloshing red liquid. His enhanced vision picked up details invisible to normal eyes, microscopic crystalline structures suspended in the liquid. It reminded him of something he had seen before, he wasn't quite sure though, it looked slightly different. Just as Arthur's eyes were diverted for a moment, cataloging the drug's properties, the dealer took his chance. His claws extended fully, 3 inches of sharpness, and he slashed forward toward Arthur's exposed face. He struck, his claws raking across Arthur's cheek. But it felt like hitting an unmovable wall. Through the gaps between the man's fingers, Arthur's 2 blue eyes looked at the dealer with something that looked like a mix between resignation and disappointment. Seriously. I told you to stay put, didn't I? Arthur's voice carried no anger, just a tired sort of exasperation. I had to try, the man shrugged, pulling his hand back. Before the dealer could even process what was happening next, Arthur flicked his forehead with as little strength as he could gather. The dealer's eyes rolled back, showing white, and he crumpled into unconsciousness, sliding down the wall into an undignified heap. Arthur's eyes then landed on the addict. The man was still staring at the syringes in Arthur's hand, his whole body trembling with need. He probably would have tried to make a grab for them by now if not for the whole debacle which had just transpired. Do you know what they are? Arthur asked gently. The man shook his head, though his eyes never left the case. Do you know what they do? The man nodded, a jerky, desperate motion. So what do they do? Arthur encouraged, his voice soft as talking to a frightened animal. The addict began, scratching at his wrist, so hard it looked like they were about to draw blood. Arthur's free hand gently stopped him. They make me stronger. They enhance your quirk. The man nodded, finally tearing his eyes away from the syringes to look at Arthur's face, and in it, Arthur only saw a small smile. They do look similar to Trigger, but not quite. But why would they only go for 5,000 yen? This is probably incredibly diluted. Arthur's eyes landed once more on the addict. What's your name? Rin, the man said, scratching at his wrist again, which Arthur once more stopped. That's a beautiful name. Arthur replied. So how come you're after this stuff? Rin's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. It just makes me feel strong. Like I mattered. Like I'm not just nothing. Did you hurt anyone while on the high? No, never, Rin replied quickly, the words spilling from his mouth along with droplets of saliva. Arthur's enhanced vision caught the state of the man's tongue, no black, which meant that it wasn't the idiotype, which meant he probably hadn't suffered too much from the aggressivity that came from Trigger. Are you going to take me in? Rin asked, his eyes darting to the unconscious dealer at his side, then to the alley's exit, calculating distances he knew he couldn't cross. That depends. Depends. On what? You, of course. I really do want to take you at your word, that you never hurt anyone while on Trigger. So for that, I need to ask you some more questions. Arthur's tone remained conversational. What's your quirk? Rin's face flushed with embarrassment. I can make soups colder. Arthur's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment Rin thought he was about to be mocked. It wouldn't be the first time. That actually sounds like a cool quirk. It does. The shock in Rin's voice was palpable. Yeah, seems incredibly practical. Instant gazpacho, perfect noodles, etc. So what were the effects of the quirk while on Trigger? I could make an icy wind. Nothing special, just cold air that could push things around a little. Freeze water sometimes. Rin's voice grew smaller with each word, expecting disappointment. Arthur smiled, a grin from ear to ear. Okay, then that's that. I believe you didn't hurt anyone, and since you didn't have them on you, I have no reason to take you in. Just like that. Just like that. I needed to ask you a few questions to listen to and gauge your normal heartbeat, Arthur said as his index finger touched the man's chest, right over his racing heart. It's quite erratic from the withdrawal, so I couldn't gauge it by normal standards. But there's no deception in your voice, no tells of lying. You're telling the truth. Thanks, Rin said, his hand automatically going to scratch at his wrist again. Arthur's hand intercepted his gently for the third time, and Rin noticed for the first time how warm the gauntlet was. I do have one more question though. Arthur began, his conversational tone continuing. Would you like to not be an addict anymore? Huh. The word came out strangled, disbelieving. I can cure you. All you have to do is grab her tip, Arthur said. Excalibur, still sheathed in Avalon, materialized in Arthur's hand with no flourish, no longer strapped at his waist, just suddenly there as if it had always been. He pushed the tip of Avalon toward the men, not aggressively, just offering. Rin's hands shook as he stared at the scabbard. His already confused expression grew even more bewildered, but his hand found the scabbard's tip anyway, drawn by something he couldn't name. Hope, maybe, that foreign feeling that bubbled in his chest. Arthur's dragon heart thrummed. Mana traveled from Arthur into Avalon. Avalon's healing properties invaded Rin's body gently, seeking out the damage years of trigger use had wrought. The energy found the scarred neural pathways, the damaged dopamine receptors, the depleted serotonin production. It found the hormonal dependency that Trigger had carved into his very cells, the biological chains that kept him crawling back to dealers in dark alleys. Rin gasped as he felt it working. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming, like a warm shower hitting you at once after a long day at work. He could feel the fog lifting from his mind, the constant gnawing need that had lived in his bones for so long beginning to fade. Years of damage being undone in moments. After what felt like eternity but was only seconds, Arthur pulled Avalon back, placing her once more at his waist. Rin looked down at his hands, turning them over as if seeing them for the first time. His wrists, God, his wrists didn't itch. For the first time in 2 years, they didn't itch. The constant need to scratch, to claw at his own skin, was gone. The absence of that compulsion was so profound it felt like losing a limb. Tears formed at the edges of his eyes. He fought against them, because what was the point of crying? Rin had learnt long ago there was no point except for weakness, so he wouldn't cry. He kept the tears at bay with everything he had. Tears fall for a reason, Arthur's voice was impossibly gentle. So let them fall. With those words, the dam broke. Rin began to cry. He bawled his eyes out, pouring out all of his spirit on the dirty alley floor. His shoulders shook with the force of it, and he might have collapsed if not for Arthur's steadying hand on his shoulder. Arthur stayed next to the men in perfect silence, simply there. He could hear every heartbeat, every hitched breath, could smell the salt of tears. But he simply stood there, a guardian in blue and gold, letting a man remember how to be human again. Finally, the tears stopped, leaving Rin's eyes reddened and swollen. I'm sorry for that, Rin whispered, wiping his face with his sleeve. No need to apologize, Arthur replied. I may have cured you of your dependency, but I can't be sure about the lingering psychological effects. The body might be healed, but the mind needs time. So tell you what, take out your phone. Rin fumbled in his pocket, pulling out a battered smartphone with a cracked screen that still somehow worked. My number is 643341917. Dial it in. With shaking fingers, Rin entered the numbers. A ring came out, and Arthur moved at superhuman speed to cancel the call before it could properly connect, the motion so fast Rin only saw a blur. You ever feel the need to get more of this? Arthur said as he jiggled the now closed suitcase, the syringes clinking inside. Call me, please. Day or night, doesn't matter. There's also a group on a web page called The Round Table, you can contact me through there too. I'll help you. And remember, you're much stronger than you think you are. Arthur pulled Rin to his feet, gently, giving him one last smile. Then, in one smooth motion, he grabbed the unconscious dealer and pulled him over his shoulder. Take care of yourself, Rin. You're worth taking care of. With that, he was gone, moving with speed that left only a flutter of blue and gold cape in his wake. Rin stood alone in the alley. The silence was deafening after all that had happened. And there, in that perfect silence, Rin heard it, the buzzing of a bee. Chapter 67, We Aren't Just Dragons, We Are F. I arrived at the nearest police station, criminal and drugs on shoulder and in hand respectively. The dealer's breathing shallow against my ear. The station's automatic doors hiss open. Hello, I said as I peeked my head into the department. The main desk sits elevated slightly, papers neatly pressed at one side. A police officer's gaze meets my own, it goes up and down, inspecting my suit with tired eyes beneath graying eyebrows, scratching at a beard that hasn't quite grown in yet. I settled him and still knocked unconscious on the floor, careful not to let his head hit too hard. Hello young man, what again dash, the officer stops mid-sentence, his scratching stops as well. You're Arthur the Vigilante. Damn. I see as the officer tenses, muscles stop working as smoothly and even his face gets locked in place, and with his words a few others in close proximity tense too. Chairs scrape against the floor. Papers stop shuffling. I can hear heartbeats accelerating. 5, no, 6 officers now aware of my presence. They begin to sweat, forehead and brow mostly. I see the officer reach to his side, to his weapon. The leather holster creaks. Metal clicks. You're not supposed to be a vigilante anymore. He begins to unholster his weapon. The motion isn't smooth, in fact his fingers are so tense, he misses the first time. Weren't police meant to de-escalate the situation? This was the complete opposite. My mind races through options. I could disarm him easily, but that would only make things worse. Violence begets violence. I quickly settle Case at my side, my movements are slow. No sudden motions. I don't want one of them to shoot. My arms going up to show I was no threat, palms open, fingers spread. I'm not a vigilante anymore, I have my provisional hero license here, I'm interning in Ryukyu's agency, I said, keeping my voice level and calm. I noticed then something that Toru had once told me, I was very different when I was doing hero work than when I was just being normal. I couldn't be more thankful for that distinction right now. One of my hands moves to a small pocket of the cloth in my armor, slowly. From it, I pick out my card and show it. The laminated surface with my face at its edge, my saving grace in this fiasco. The officer squints, leaning forward slightly. His eyes scan the card once, twice, 3 times. Reading every word. The tension in the room is thick enough I could cut it with Excalibur. Nodding slowly, the clip over his gun closing once more with a definitive click. Thank God. The relief that washes through me is instant. Around us, I hear the hearts of the people around me calm. Chairs settle. Still I can feel some of their eyes are still on me. I cough, clearing the tension from my throat as I point to the dealer at my side. His forehead I realize has a small bump, I get the urge to heal it with Avalon, I restrain myself. He was dealing trigger in an alley, I caught him, his supply is in that case. The officer nods. 2 more approach me. One cautious, younger. The other relaxed, older, and he walks past with a kind smile. He pats me on the shoulder, a gesture that surprises me, before kneeling to open the case. As there are no locks, one side of the case just falls to wayside. Inside are the vials. He inspects it for a few seconds, counting the vials, before closing it once more as well as he can without locks. He nods towards the original police officer, a confirmation. The cautious one begins to pull the dealer inside, dragging him by his armpits. The criminal's shoes scrape against the floor. Did you get any relevant information? Who did he sell this to? It would be best to have a witness to corroborate your dash, the older officer begins to ramble. I think of Rin but decide against it. He doesn't need to deal with this. He needs help, not handcuffs. He had the drugs on his person, isn't that enough? I interrupt as he's still asking me a few questions. The officer scratches at his beard. For police officers sure, but since heroes work under another branch of government which at the same time is privatized through agencies. He trails off, gesturing vaguely at me then at the criminal still being dragged inside. It's basically his word against yours, it's also why heroes don't work alone most of the time. Partner testimony carries weight. Solo work. He shrugs. Gets complicated. So what can I do? I ask, a bit of frustration seeping into my voice. I caught a criminal. I have the evidence. Why isn't that enough? Was there really no one who might have seen you? Again I think of Rin, huddled in that alley. I made him a promise to help him. I won't break it for the sake of paperwork. No, I'm sorry, I reply as I shake my head. The lie tastes bitter in my tongue. I never liked lying, I think I'd never get used to it. Probably because it reminded me of Mom and how I'd lie to cover up for her. It's fine, he sighs. We'll run his prints, he's probably in the system, we'll be able to build a case, with what you've given us. It just won't be guaranteed. Thanks anyway for catching the perp. As long as we get some of the stuff off the streets, the city will be better for it. Small victories. I nod once more, smiling, and with that I turn to take my leave. My footsteps echo in the station as I walk toward the exit. Behind me, I hear the officers discussing the case in low voices, about me. I don't like it, but I say nothing. It seems there is still much I have to learn about working in the legal framework. Still, the guy had been caught and that was all that mattered at the end of the day. I walk out of the station, opening another pocket in my cloth to grab my phone and look at the time. 11:38, lunch is probably at 1300 hours, Ryukyu had mentioned something about discussing patrol routes over food. So I still have some time. I spend the next hour looking through the city, trying to be useful in small ways. Constrained as I was to half of the city, it was still nice to be back where I was supposed to be. Of course not all vigilante work is grand, in fact most of it is quite unnoticeable. I pick up some trash that had been left on the street, depositing it in the proper bins. A woman struggles with a stroller at the bottom of a subway entrance. The wheels catch on every step, her baby crying in frustration. She smiles as she sees my costume. She doesn't recognize me as Arthur, probably just a sidekick. I carry the stroller up the flight of stairs, her grateful smile worth more than any grand heroic deed. The baby stops crying, staring at me with wide, curious eyes. "Thank you," she breathes, adjusting her grip on the handles. "No worries, ma'am, it's been my pleasure," I reply, feeling the need to bow slightly, though I'm not sure why. Mothers are the unsung heroes of the world. I continue my patrol, trying to be where I'm needed for whatever reason I may be. Small things. Once more I stand in front of the agency, the glass and chrome building rising into the sky. Ryukyu's giant poster is plastered on the front. The glass has been picked up already from this morning's incident, so it just looks like a renovation where they have decided to change the windows. That is, of course, if you don't count the Mirko-shaped hole in one wall, a perfect silhouette of her form where she crashed through, and the small sunken crater just at the entrance from where I and Mirko had fought. The concrete is spiderwebbed with cracks radiating outward like a frozen explosion. I walk over to the desk, my reflection multiplying in the polished marble floor. A woman with green hair sits behind it, scrolling through her phone, a bored look in her eyes. Her long acrylic nails tap against the screen. I'm about to ask her where the lunch is being held, but before I can open my mouth, someone appears at my side. Ryukyu's assistant, or who I think is her assistant, materializes beside me like a ghost, scaring the bejesus out of me. My heart jumps into my throat. I didn't hear him approach, didn't smell him, didn't sense him at all. It makes me wonder what his quirk is. "Madam, Ryukyu is waiting for you," he says in a slight bow, his voice soft. He looks more like a butler with his garments than anything else. "Please follow me." I do as he says, following him up the stairs. We don't take the elevator, which seems odd until I realize that Ryukyu also came down some stairs before. There is no elevator, for some reason. Floor after floor we climb. We stop when we make it to the 7th. The top floor. 2 black doors with giant golden wings as handles adorn the entrance. The wings are not like those of a bird, but rather they are scaly and thin. They are a dragon's wings. Her assistant pushes one of the doors in, revealing what is inside. A giant office sprawls before me, easily the size of a small apartment. Sofas and chairs and tables make up the entrance area, arranged for casual meetings. Posters and trophies line the walls showcasing Ryukyu's achievements, newspaper clippings of major saves, certificates of commendation, a key to the city. At one end is a giant oak desk with a stack of papers that seems about to topple over, but that isn't what catches my attention. No, that is the middle of the room, where a giant round carpet sprawls, an intricate pattern of red, silver, and gold woven into its surface. A glass table sits above it. 4 chairs surround it. 2 of those have occupants. One of them, of course, is Ryukyu, lounging in her hero costume. The other is Nijire, who smiles at me brightly as she sees me walk in, also in her costume. I reciprocate the gesture with a smile of my own. I realize then that food is set on the table. 3 dishes, steam still rising. Salmon and fried rice, with a sauce drizzled over both that smells of soy and ginger. My stomach growls audibly. I sit at Nijire's side, which is also at Ryukyu's side, because it is a circle. Though I am farther from Ryukyu than to Nijire. "So Arthur?" Nijire asks immediately, not even waiting for me to settle in my chair. "How was your first day back on patrol? Did you catch anyone? I'm sure you did, didn't you? Was it exciting? Did you use your sword?" Ryukyu hears her rapid-fire questions but says nothing, simply taking a sip from Coke. My pupils dilate. Delicious Coke. The condensation on the glass, the perfect ratio of ice, the way the bubbles fizzle. I want it. "I caught a dealer selling some trigger, but that's everything of importance," I answer, though my eyes never leave the drink in Ryukyu's hand. Ryukyu seems to notice me staring at the drink. Her lips quirk in amusement. "Do you want some?" I nod, perhaps too eagerly. She snaps her fingers and there her assistant is once more at her side, appearing from nowhere with a giant bottle of Coca-Cola in hand. The 2-liter bottle sweats with cold, condensation trickling down its sides. I want to gulp it all down. "Leave it here, Murata, thank you," Ryukyu says. The assistant, whose name I now know is Murata, nods with that same slight bow, placing the bottle on the table with barely a sound before vanishing again. I open it, the cap twisting off with a satisfying pop, the gas fizzing out slowly like a tiny geyser. The sound is music. Then I begin to pour, watching the dark liquid cascade into my glass, foam forming at the top. After doing so I gulp it down. The sugar hits my system at once and I feel my pupils dilate even more. I want to down another one immediately but realize that may be rude, so I turn to Nijire and ask. "How was your morning? Did you catch anyone?" She shakes her head, her long hair swaying with the motion. "Nope, simple patrol. I enjoyed it though, I get to use my quirk to move around and stuff, which helps a lot with stress. I nod, understanding. Using our quirks for simple things is one of the small joys of hero work. Quirks are after all parts of ourselves, and while a lot of people could live without using their quirks for heroes, it's like asking them to use and stop using their arms at different intervals. With that we eat, making idle conversation about the morning, the city, the weather. But as we eat, I begin to notice something strange. Ryukyu is eating, a lot. Plate after plate is brought up to us thanks to Murata's silent servitude, appearing and disappearing like a well-trained ghost butler, and plate after plate our appetite doesn't seem to go down as we wolf it down. The salmon is perfectly cooked, flaking apart at the touch of a fork. The rice has just the right amount of sticky consistency. The sauce ties it all together. I know the taste inside and out by the 7th plate. Nijire is already patting her belly from her 2nd serving, looking full and content. I don't know how you two do it, she says with wonder, watching us continue. Meanwhile, Ryukyu and I eat our 12th plate, matching each other bite for bite. Neither of us comments on it, but there's a mutual recognition, a silent acknowledgement of shared appetite. Now I see. Now I know where the familiarity came from. The reason she seemed to understand something about me from the moment we met. We were both foodies, bottomless pits, creatures of appetite. It all made sense. Chapter 68, laid bare for one to see. It was late. After eating with Nijire and Ryukyu we all went out and patrol once more. Ryukyu remained mostly quiet as we worked, she was recognized quite a lot and I got a few glances as well, thankfully they didn't interrupt our patrol for one reason or another. Then when it was all said and done, I bid my adieu to Ryukyu, thanked her for the internship and came back to UA alone. Nijire said she had some things to do. It was already pretty late, so even though I didn't need sleep, I missed my bed and decided to rest. It was an activity I enjoyed. However, said activity was interrupted by ringing. I looked down at my phone. Nizu's name appearing on screen. He was calling me. I picked it up, turning on speaker mode and placing the phone on my desk. Hello lad, Nizu's squeaky voice fills my room. I smiled. It was nice. Hello Nizu, I replied in kind. Why are you calling me? If you wanted to spend some time together you know you can always come to my room, though do bring your own tea, because you know I have none here. No, lad, while I do enjoy our little chats this is something else. You see, I was wondering if you could heal someone. I immediately tensed, scrambling to get my phone. Who? It doesn't matter. You're in your office, right? I'll be right there. Narration POV. In Nizu's office, 2 hearts beat. The door slammed open and a 3rd heart joined the fray. Eesh, sorry, got maybe a little too excited, Arthur said, his voice ringing in the office as he closed the door as carefully as he could, as if compensating for his abrupt entry. Arthur turned around after hearing the soft click of the door behind him. His eyes laying on the 2 other beating hearts. One which Arthur could now hear was awfully weak. Nizu was sitting in his chair sipping on his tea, while across from him, a living cadaver sat. There was no other way to describe the man, he was too thin, his eyes too sunken, and his heart so very weak, and yet Arthur couldn't tear his gaze away. Lad, I know this may come as a shock to you but Nizu began. All Might Sensei, Arthur interrupted, surging forward in an instant to All Might's side, grabbing his palm, simple skin over bone in his hand. What happened to you? Why are you like this? All Might couldn't meet Arthur's eyes as he asked the questions he did, instead Nizu's voice rang once more. Arthur, I know you are worried, but please sit, he's fine, Nizu said looking towards All Might. Well, as fine as one in his position can be, but before that, we need to tell you a story. A long story. Arthur nodded, seating beside All Might and never taking his eyes away from the man. The symbol of peace. Or at least what used to be said symbol. Arthur forced himself to look away from All Might and towards Nizu. What happened to him? Just be quiet for a moment and let me recount. This man seating beside you is All Might. Otherwise known as Toshinori Yagi, and his story is one spanning decades. His story is not his alone, no, his story is the story of Japan, of the greatest threat ever faced. This is the story of one for all and all for one. All Might, or rather Toshinori's voice spoke out next, and without it came a story so grand, Arthur couldn't quite believe it. He almost tuned it out. All for one, stealing quirks, one for all users, each passing it on before dying to set all for one, and as it came to a close, the tuning out stopped. It's been almost a decade now. The last time one for all and all for one ever met, the time I was able to bring justice to all who had perished by all for one's hand. However, Toshinori trailed off, as he lifted his shirt, to reveal his entire side crushed. Still Arthur couldn't quite concentrate. His eyes landing on Nizu. You didn't want me to be his protege, you wanted me to be his successor. And Naite wanted Mirio to be it. But neither of us were, Midoriya is. That's why his body breaks down, I thought he was like Mom. That his quirk was too much for his own body to handle, but it wasn't, because it's not his quirk, Arthur muttered, as his gaze turned from Nizu to Toshinori's injury. Neither of the two voiced the fact that Arthur somehow knew who All Might's protege was going to be. Is All for One dead? We believe so, Nizu replied. Then why pass on One for All? At that both remained quiet. Arthur shook his head, his thoughts a jumbled mess. He couldn't quite figure it, so he simply decided to throw them to the wayside, concentrating first on what he was called here to do. He grabbed Excalibur by her hilt, still sheathed inside Avalon. Place your hand on top of Avalon, Arthur said. Toshinori did as he was told, placing skin and bones on Avalon, and as his enhanced eyes landed on the hand, Arthur now realized, All Might was just a man. Again he shook his head to throw out all thoughts. His heart thrummed in his chest, mana surging forward into Avalon once more. There was no grand light, just the simple movement of energy from body to scabbard to body. All Might felt it. Then he breathed in. It wasn't painful. For the first time in years. The organs that had been ruptured years ago knit themselves together, mass appearing from seemingly nowhere to replace the old and destroyed, with the healthy and the new. The spleen came first, his left kidney came second, his stomach came third. The missing parts of his liver, his small and large intestine, the collapsed lung, the completely destroyed missing half of his diaphragm. Slowly. Minute after minute. Hour after hour. No one in the room seemed to notice the time pass, too enthralled, enraptured, enamored, in the healing. Visual or not. And finally it was over. And when it was over, all that was left was ragged breathing. Arthur's ragged breathing. Sweat falling from his brow and onto the floor below. His heart, beating fast. Faster than he had felt in a long time. So fast he felt like it was about to give out. And with it came something else he hadn't felt in a long time. He was tired. Avalon should have prevented it, but it didn't. Arthur fell to his knees. Nizu jumped from his seat, coming out of his stupor and scurrying towards Arthur, placing his hand on the teenager's back as it shivered, in cold sweat. Nizu said nothing though. So still only tired, ragged gasps echoed in the room. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime but couldn't have been more than a minute, Arthur's breathing returned to normal. He stopped sweating and rose to his full height. You're healed, Arthur said in a half-smile towards Toshinori. Even Arthur himself didn't know why his smile wouldn't reach his eyes in that moment, but as Toshinori rose from his own seat, Arthur had to look up to meet his gaze. Gone was the man at death's door that had been standing there a mere 3 hours ago. In its place stood what everyone else saw, a man, huge in stature and build, clothes straining to contain him. The symbol of peace. But Arthur couldn't see that, no, not anymore. All he saw in front of him was a good man. The symbol was dead. Arthur knew that more than anyone in that moment. More than even Toshinori himself. Thank you, young Arthur, you have no idea what this means to me. Arthur didn't say anything. Instead, Nizu was the one who spoke up. And One for All. Still in its final embers, I'm afraid, but I think I can sustain this form indefinitely for now, as long as I don't push myself too much. Toshinori took Arthur's hand in his own giant grip. Thank you, truly young Arthur, I will never be able to repay you. Still Arthur remained quiet, though he didn't know why. All Might looked to Nizu, wondering what to do. You can go, Nizu said with a wave of his hand. All Might nodded, thanking Arthur once more, before walking out, ducking his head beneath the door's frame. Nizu himself, however, placed his hand on Arthur's leg. Arthur, are you okay? Nizu asked. It may have been too much to ask of you. I probably should have given you a few days to digest all the news before you healed him, maybe until the end of the internship. Sorry, I got too excited of the possibility of healing Toshinori. It's fine, Nizu, Arthur finally said, a small smile forming on his face. How did you know that Midoriya was his successor? Nizu asked, trying to keep Arthur talking, so he wouldn't have to think about all that had been said. I figured it out at the beginning of the year, saw him spying on Midoriya when we were doing the quirk tests. It was just a guess for the most part. You're a smart kid dash. I'm sorry, Arthur interrupted. It's just, not all of it has settled down up there. He added, pointing to his head. Arthur wasn't just talking about All Might and AFO, no. Rather, he also couldn't wrap his head around the tiredness he felt after healing, the exhaustion that Avalon should have prevented. The feeling of his mana for the first time, running out. In a way that terrified him. He knew the truth. The greatest pillar had fallen long ago, and in the same day he had healed the pillar he had come face to face with his own shortcomings, one of the 2 times since his school year began. USJ had been first. A shortcoming in will, in doing what had to be done. This was different, this shortcoming had been that of his own body. His mana had replenished fully by now, but still. Is there anything I can do? Nizu's voice rang out. I don't think so. Arthur was about to turn to leave. He really believed he just needed some time. That going tomorrow on patrol would stabilize him once more. Nizu stopped him before he could. "Arthur, lad," Nizu said, gripping Arthur's shirt. I want you to know I care about you. In a way I don't care about for anyone else. I say all my students are like children to me. That is a simile, one which works to express what I feel even though it isn't entirely accurate. But Arthur, you really are like family to me. Above all else I want you to know that. And a little below that I want you to know, it's my first time living too, I make mistakes. Too many to count. Today it seems like this has been one of them, and for that I apologize, but talking to you in that hospital was probably the best decision I have ever made. Sleep well. I love you, Arthur. A/N, All Might healed, but yeah, the shock of information to Arthur is insane, and then finding a limit to his mana is insane too. Two insanities in something he expected would be a time where he felt like he would be doing good, something new and exciting, healing. Also, I know some of you may not like the fact that I gave Dragonheart a mana limit, but he does have one. It's just super high and growing every day, but healing almost half a person's pulverized body is taxing to him. And Nizu could only think of one way to get Arthur out of his stupor. To lay himself bare, and tell him what Arthur means to him. A son in a way. A friend. A protege. A kinship. It is hard to put into words what Nizu feels towards Arthur because of the circumstances of their relationship. Arthur himself feels things towards Nizu that are hard to put into words. He admires him. Loves him, like family. Understands him. And even a slight, ever so small part of Arthur resents him. He made Arthur's life complicated in ways no one but Arthur would understand. I do not know how some people push out 4 chapters a day. Or write daily chapters on multiple fics. I just don't get it, lol. Either way, sorry for the small rant, see y'all sometime in the future, cause I really hope not to spend 6 hours on another chapter, ever. Chapter 69, Second Day. I was still trying to think everything through. It was a lot. I had slept it off, or at least most of it. It wasn't bad like it had been bad. It was just a lot. All Might had killed someone. All for one. A man who could steal quirks, who had terrorized Japan for generations. Being able to steal quirks. It was such a powerful ability. My hand found itself on my chest, feeling my heart pump out mana with every beat. Could he steal mine? The thought crept in uninvited. Would Excalibur and Avalon even count as a quirk? They felt different. They had always felt different. But then again, what did I know about the boundaries of such an ability? Nothing. I knew nothing. I shook my head, trying not to think about it. I didn't want to get hung up on it. I didn't want to get hung up on anything. There was work to be done today. Patrol. Being a hero, for the second time in a long time. Still, one thing did stay with me. Nizu's words. I hadn't really known how to respond at the time. I still don't. Family was a weird word. What was it that made us family? What was it that made my mother and I family? Was it the blood we shared? No, that couldn't be it. Blood was just blood. Adopted children are still part of families. Was it the experiences we had been through? That also felt wrong. I had experienced things with friends I had never experienced with my family or Nizu. Laughter, awkwardness, all new and each unique in their own ways. So, what was it? And more importantly, could I be Nizu's family while he wasn't mine? It felt wrong. I couldn't think of it in any other manner. I couldn't think of Nizu as my family. I couldn't think of him as a friend. I couldn't even think of him as my mentor. All of those felt wrong. Each a small piece in a puzzle that would never fit, that I'd never figure out, that I'd never see finished. The image of him gripping my shirt, those small paws trembling slightly as he said those words, played through my mind on repeat. I love you, Arthur. When had anyone last said that to me? When had I last let myself hear it? My hand instinctively went to Excalibur's hilt. My grip was about to tighten, but I stopped myself before I could. Almost with the same instinct the movement had begun. I had been doing that less. I hadn't even noticed until now. They had been mine and I theirs. They had been the sole things that kept me going when I should have fallen. Were they family? I released a short sigh, my hands falling to my side. Relationships were hard. Maybe that was okay. Perhaps just like with all of the information I had from yesterday, all I needed was time. Just a little more time. Arthur. Nijire's voice called me from whatever pit of the mind I had fallen into. She was standing in front of me, waving her arms wildly in front of my face. You okay? You looked a little spaced out. I'm fine, I replied, my gaze tearing from her and landing on Ryukyu. The pro-hero stood with her arms crossed, studying me with those sharp eyes of hers, almost reptilian in their likeness. So Ryukyu-senpai, what are we going to do today? Same as yesterday, we'll be patrolling. However, seeing you work yesterday, I have decided that you will be with Nijire and I all day. Understood. Her tone brooked no argument. I wondered briefly what I had done to warrant such close supervision, but perhaps that wasn't the right question. Perhaps the question was what she had seen in me that made her decide I needed watching. Understood. Understood. Both of us replied, Nijire a little more cheerfully than me. Her enthusiasm was infectious on most days. Today it simply reminded me of everything I wasn't feeling. As we prepared to leave, I had forgotten, but I needed to talk with Ida about healing his brother. Ingenium. Another name, another life hanging in the balance of what I could or couldn't do. The weight of it settled somewhere in my chest and refused to move. Narration POV. In the meanwhile, as they patrolled and the day began to pass, elsewhere. In a building's first floor, a bar, dingy and yet perfectly clean. 4 people lay in wait. The establishment sat tucked away. No sign marked its entrance. No light spilled from its windows. It was as if it had been left to rot, a building of a time long past. Shigaraki, of course, seated at the bar with his shoulders hunched, quiet, his remaining hand curled into a fist. Kurogiri wearing a bartender outfit and tending the bar with a wet towel, polishing glasses, like those baristas from movies. The mist that comprised his form swirled slowly. At his other side was Stain, the insidious hero killer. He stood rather than sat, his back against the wall where he could see every entrance and exit. His weapons remained sheathed but his hands never strayed far from them. And sitting on a red couch was a child, a girl around 7 or 8. She had twin tails that were shaped to look like wings, bobbing slightly with each movement of her head. She was sitting upside down, kicking her legs joyfully against the backrest. The silence stretched. None of them seemed willing to break it. So. The girl began, her high-pitched voice ringing out, shattering the tension like glass against stone. Her head turned to the side, to the hero killer. What are you doing here? Not that I really care, but I find you such a bore and I don't like boring people. So please buzz off. Stain said nothing. His eyes, however, looked the girl up and down, cataloging everything from the ribbons in her hair to the shine of her patent leather shoes. Nothing about her made sense. He spoke nevertheless, his ambition and code betraying him. Child, go home, this is no place for you. Agree to disagree, you bore. How about you leave and kill some other weak hero who is of no importance whatsoever, except for feeding your stupid philosophy, she replied, her legs still kicking the air in that infuriating rhythm. As for you two, I heard you weren't a bore, so why are you all quiet? Come on, do something already. Life is fleeting. The room went quiet. The only sound was the soft squeak of Kurogiri's towel against glass. Oh wait, that's not what a little girl would say, she knocked her fist against her head in an exaggerated gesture of embarrassment. Teehee. Silly me. The wrongness of it would have troubled any other person. Shigaraki's voice came next. It was soft, almost elegant, and only one of the other 3 noticed what drove it, fear, all-encompassing fear. His fist was no longer balled up. His entire body had gone still. Join us, Stain. Join us and carry out your ideals. Join us and be who you could be. Join us and dash. Weren't you the ones that attacked UA? Stain interrupted, pushing himself off the wall. His presence seemed to fill the room suddenly. Kurogiri stopped cleaning the glass at that, ready to defend Shigaraki. To go after the young like that, the future of heroism. The truth of heroism. He unsheathed his machete and katana in a single fluid motion. Steel ripped against leather. The blades were dented and filled with rust. Tell me, did you try anything against Arthur? Is that how you lost your arm? You are truly the worst kind of people. Shigaraki's hand twitched toward the stump where his arm used to be. An involuntary movement. Now, Kurogiri interrupted, setting down the towel. His voice was calming and polite, a gentleman in a way. No need to get aggressive over this. I disagree, please get more aggressive over this, it's very entertaining, the girl spoke out, clapping her small hands together once. Her eyes glittering as a grin began to form on her face. Please, don't escalate the situation, Kurogiri replied, though his mist seemed to shift more rapidly now, preparing for eventualities. We all want the same thing, to see the downfall of hero society and replace it with something new. Before he could continue, he felt something rake across his face. A blade, faster than he could react. He stopped where he was, his form suddenly rigid. Shigaraki felt the same, his body locking into place mid-motion. They were both now paralyzed. Stain licked the remainder of the blood from both of his blades, his tongue dragging across steel. You both disgust me, your ideals are not ones to be followed, he struck forward with his blade pushing Shigaraki to the ground. The villain fell without resistance, his body betraying him completely. Their eyes met. Stain had expected to see fear. The same fear the pros had for him, that delicious terror that validated everything he believed. But he didn't. Shigaraki wasn't afraid of him, northwest matter how close the edge of his katana came to his jugular. It nicked the skin, a droplet of blood running down Shigaraki's neck and onto the floor, spreading into a small dark pool. No fear. At least none for Stain. There was fear there, certainly. But it was aimed elsewhere. At something or rather someone Stain couldn't see. Stain didn't know why but he stood up, turning his back to both. A sign of either supreme confidence or utter disregard. I may not agree but you stayed true to your ideals, that is enough for me not to kill you. He turned his head to the girl who was grinning from ear to ear, clapping her hands so slowly none of the three could hear it. Child, get out of this life. Live well. I'm fine thanks. Stain nodded at those words, something like disappointment flickering across features before vanishing the next instant. He sheathed his blades and left the bar at the next moment, not looking back. At the same time as the door clicked shut both Shigaraki and Kurogiri's paralysis wore off, their bodies their own once more. That's disappointing, he could have been a good asset, Kurogiri said exasperated, rolling his shoulders as if testing that everything still worked. Shigaraki's hand moved to his neck where the blood had already begun to coagulate, a single finger probing the small wound with annoyance. Don't worry about it Kurogiri, it wasn't meant to happen. His head then turned to the girl who was still clapping happily, that same unsettling rhythm. Why are you here? Do you want to join? The girl's smile widened, stretching her face, the edge of her lips beginning to tear. She swung her legs back and as she was already facing upside down she fell from the couch, flipping in the air as she did so, landing on her feet. Her hands stretched out, doing jazz hands. Ta-da. Finally my turn, I am a very special, supremely important person you see. I hear much and no more, and what I am here for is one simple thing. I want to see the world in chaos for no other reason than I know what staleness can do. It's so dreadfully boring. I have no revenge plots, no qualms and grievances, even though I really should, she spoke, now throwing her body over the couch like some damsel in a melodrama, her face turning to a camera placed in the upper corner of the bar, completely obscured by shadow. Her grin widened further, the skin now ripping, two small streaks of blood flowing from the edges. So I want to join you. I'll even give you 2 little presents for all of you. Arthur can heal you. Truly heal you. He has also healed All Might of all people. If you want some of my other presents I'm afraid you'll have to actually do things with what I give you. Please, do not be a bore. It would be such a waste. The words hung in the air. Arthur. Healing. All Might. Each revelation more devastating than the last. She twirled off the sofa again, movements graceful and grotesque in equal measure. Bowing to both Kurogiri and Shigaraki. Both of them were weirded out to say the least, they didn't know how to approach this information. As her bow held, a strange thing began to happen. A pop resounded in the room, ringing in both of their ears. Her left eye had burst. Blood pouring onto the floor without preamble, thick and dark against the wood. The skin on her face began to bubble, almost as if it was being boiled or expanded from the inside. Something moved beneath the surface, writhing. The skin couldn't hold and with a simple pop. The girl's head burst. Blood sprayed out in all directions. It landed on the floors, couches, seats, and both of the people in front of her. Warm and wet. Laying in the pool of blood, brain matter, hair and skin that used to be the girl's face was a bee. Its thorax burst. Twitching its legs for the last time. Silence. Neither of the two could get their bearings before something new happened. The TV flickered to life, a deep voice sounding out from speakers hidden somewhere in the walls. Shigaraki. Plans have changed, release the Nomus in Shibuya. Master, why? Shigaraki interrupted, wiping blood from his face with the back of his remaining hand. This week is the internship for the UA students according to the schedule we managed to steal, won't we be risking a lot if he shows up? It's good of you to be cautious but this is for that very purpose. Tests. Besides we have to do something enjoyable for our newest member do we not? The feed went quiet for a second, only to return in full force. And Shigaraki if you ever question me again. That will be the last. A/N, Shibuya. What's going on? Wasn't it supposed to be Hosa City? They are both wards in Tokyo but why the change? And why does AFO want to test? And why wouldn't Shigaraki want to release the Nomus? And who is the girl, why did she kill herself? Find out next time in Dragon Ball. Shit wrong verse. Either way sorry for being gone for so long. Had some free time so I was able to write this out. Oh, and Shigaraki is getting flabbergasted by more information than even Arthur himself lol. THX for reading. See y'all soon. Author out. Chapter 70, What the hell is going on in Shibuya? We were close to ending today's shift when I suddenly got a call. The phone vibrated in one of my suit's inner pockets, a soft buzzing against my ribs that pulled me out of the staleness of patrol. The sun had already set. Night covering us like a blanket. I looked towards Ryukyu. May I take this? Go ahead, she replied as she came to a stop. Nijire wasn't with us anymore. She had gone on to single shift around 2 hours ago, her cheerful wave still lingering in my memory. I nodded at Ryukyu's words, my fingers wriggling into one of the openings in my armor, as they grabbed onto my phone and pulled it out. The screen was bright. A name spread across Nizu. I swiped to accept the call and placed it against my ear even though I didn't need to. Super hearing and all that. Good evening, Nizu. Is everything okay? I'm fine, lad, just. Nizu went quiet. I could hear his breathing on the other side, the subtle shift of fabric as if he was adjusting in his chair. The silence stretched, so not wanting this call to go on longer than it should as I was still on patrol, I spoke up myself. What, Nizu? Nomu. My body tensed. Every muscle locked in place as if responding to some primal threat. My eyes darted around frantically, focusing on nothing at all. The buildings, the people walking past, the gentle sway of trees in the evening breeze, none of it registered. All I could see was that moment at USJ. The blood on my hands. The hollow feeling in my chest when I realized what I had done. I didn't want to be reminded of the one I had killed, even if I had accepted it as a cruel reality. A necessary evil. A burden I would carry for the rest of my life. The silence continued for a heartbeat too long before my voice finally found me once more. What about him? The arm. It's been analyzed. Arthur, believe me, I know the only thing you don't need right now is more news, but Nomu. He paused, and I could almost picture him closing his eyes, choosing his next words carefully. It's not a he. It's an it. My breath caught in that moment once more. The noise of the city fading to a dull roar in the background. Still, I spoke back, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. What do you mean he's in it? It, Nizu accentuated, as if trying to drive that point home, to hammer it into my skull until I understood. Is a corpse. Bioengineered. It wasn't human. Of course, they didn't have the full body to work with, but it's conclusive. It's in it. It wasn't alive. A reanimated thing, with little to no brain function and sense of self. That's why it had to take orders. That's why they were named Nomu 1 and 2. They are its. His words echoed in my mind, bouncing off the walls of my skull, trying to settle themselves squarely in the middle. Corpses. Reanimated. I was, horrified. My grip on my phone tightened. The screen cracking beneath my fingers, spiderweb fractures spreading across the glass. I stopped myself before fully breaking it in two, forced my hand to relax, forced my breathing to steady. Who? Who would do that? I have an idea. Arthur, the arm, it had multiple quirk factors. Again my breath hitched. A name echoed in my mind, whether because of recency or instinct I couldn't say. All for one. The words sat on my tongue, but I didn't speak them aloud. Ryuki was at my side, her dragon eyes watching me. I didn't know if she knew about all for one, but it was best not to say anything. I still remembered Nizu telling me how the information they had shared with me couldn't leave the room. None of them. Are you sure? I asked instead. Sure as I can be. I heard a new ring. Not from my phone. My head turned slowly to the noise, tracking the sound with my enhanced senses. It was coming from Ryukyu. She picked up her own phone and placed it against her ear, her expression shifting instantly. I could hear the voice on the other side. It sounded familiar. It dawned on me after a moment. It sounded like one of the people at the Hero Public Safety Commission. Requesting all assistance. Villain attack across all of Shibuya. I repeat, requesting all possible assistance. Multiple villains have been spotted. Shibuya. Tokyo. The words hit me at once, snapping me out of my daze and back into vigilante mode. Even my call with Nizu is nothing but an afterthought now. We weren't far. Yokohama was a little over 29 kilometers in a straight line from Shibuya. Given what part of the city we were in, it was closer to 42. I could make that in a little over 9 seconds at my normal speed. With mana burst, I would get there even faster. All my years as a vigilante rushed back at me. All the times I had crossed Japan. All the times I had changed routes, making them less time-consuming, perfecting them slowly in my mind, month after month, season after season, year after year. Every shortcut, every rooftop, every gap between buildings I could slip through without losing momentum. Nizu was still on the line, but I couldn't keep answering him. Not now. So I held off. Ma'am, I said, turning to Ryukyu. May I go to Shibuya? Her eyes met mine. She knew what I was capable of. Most did. If there was anything I was known for, it was my speed. She knew it too. I could get there before anyone else. You have your temporary license with you? I nodded, my hand instinctively moving to the pocket where I kept it. Then go on, boy. I'll catch up. I smiled at her answer. This really was the best agency I could have chosen. My heart thrummed in my chest, mana bursting in my legs, gathering like a coiled spring ready to release. And then I was moving, springing forward, driving myself with 10 times my usual speed. This explosive power was something I think I would never get used to. The way the world simply ceased to exist in that instant of acceleration, the way everything became nothing but motion and direction. The surroundings didn't blur around me because of my speed. If anything, they slowed. I could see everything. Each individual blade of grass bending in the wind I created. Each droplet of moisture suspended in the evening air. The instant ended, but I kept pushing it just like I had done at USJ. I held onto that expanded moment, stretched it until it screamed. The roads, buildings, trees, grass, people, animals, cars, all that was between where I stood and where I was going became a singular sensation. And then I stopped. I stood on a building, my feet finding purchase on the edge of a rooftop I had been on hundreds of times before. I was in Shibuya. Sound didn't catch up immediately. There was no sonic boom aside from the one I had released at Yokohama to get here. When my eyes landed on Shibuya, I realized I was already late. Later than I should have been. The streets below were in chaos. Fire raged from shattered storefronts. People ran in every direction, each distinct, in volume, length and pitch. Smoke billowed upward in thick black columns, obscuring the first stars that had begun to peek through the darkening sky. I prepared to go down, but my eyes took in everything first. And what I saw made my blood run cold. The villains. Brains for all to see, veins pulsing against the organ. Thick hides that looked more like armor than flesh. Vacant eyes that held no thought. They were Nomus. Multiple Nomus. Tens of them, that I could count from this vantage point, scattered across the district. Each one was tearing through everything in its path with mindless brutality, following some unseen directive that I could only guess at. Heroes that had been nearby were already beginning to engage. I brought my phone to my ear once more. Lad, you there? Nizu, I interrupted, are you sure the Nomus aren't alive? As I asked the question, I remembered USJ. My own fight against them. My speed had been compromised by one of their quirks. They had been troublesome because of too many factors. Still I remembered. Their sheer apathy. I remembered them as artificial. There was no spark of change in their hollow eyes. No chance of a better tomorrow. Not because they were villains. Not because they were monsters. It was because they weren't anything. They had been pulled from their eternal slumber, corpses that should have rested in peace, and turned into this by. No. Don't jump to conclusions. All Might said he killed him. Perhaps it was someone else. Someone who could engineer quirks. The possibilities were numerous, and none of them good. Finally, Nizu replied. His voice was steady. They aren't. They are walking corpses. I'm sorry for dropping this news onto you, but I thought you'd like to hear it. I know how traumatic it was for you. Traumatic. I almost laughed. Such a small word for such an enormous thing. The feeling of taking a life, even one that had been trying to take those of others, it had plagued me, even though I had accepted it, even though I knew it was a necessary sacrifice. But now. Thank you, Nizu. Truly. I answered back, turning my phone off and leaving it on the roof where I stood. I would come back for it later. Fire raged below. People screamed, their cries piercing through the chaos like prayers to gods that couldn't hear them. Tears fell down my eyes, hot and bitter, tracing paths down my cheeks as I looked upon the devastation. But they weren't tears of fear. They weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of relief. No holding back. Not this time. I'll return you to your eternal slumber once more. The words left my lips as a whisper, a promise spoken to the dead that walked below. They deserved peace. Whatever they had been before, whoever they had been before, they deserved better than this mockery of existence. I unsheathed Excalibur. She shone brightly in my hand, she always seemed excited to be used. It was her purpose after all. The ultimate offense. My heart burst with power. Everything slowed once more, that familiar dilation of time that came with pushing myself to the absolute limit. The flames froze mid-flicker. The screams became distant echoes. And then I was there. I now stood in front of a Nomu, one of green hide and leathery bat-like wings that sprouted from its back. I looked into its eyes, searching for something, anything that might make me hesitate. I saw nothing. Excalibur met the Nomu's neck. It met no resistance. Tendon, muscle, and bone strained to stop the edge, the biological imperative to survive kicking in even when there was no mind to direct it. They failed. The blade passed like a hot knife through butter. Black blood, thick and smelling of copper, spewed from the neck. Some of it landed on my armor, warm and heavy, sliding down the surface in dark rivulets. The Nomu's head rolled on the ground. Dead. A/N, damn Arthur can't catch a fucking break these last 2 days, huh? Either way, with no hope of a better tomorrow, Arthur will kill them, because that is all he can do. Return them to the peace of death. And if Arthur doesn't hesitate, nothing can stop him. No quirk. No Nomu. Nothing. Kinda terrifying when you think about it, lol. See you next time. Probably soon. Author out. Chapter 71, What the hell is going on in Shibu? Okay, I'll stop now. Narration POV. He ran. He ran as fast as his short legs could carry him. His sneakers slapped against the pavement, the sound drowned out by screaming somewhere behind them, somewhere too close. He ran as his papa dragged him, fingers wrapped around his small wrist. It hurt. Then those hands released him only to pull him up into an embrace. He wasn't running anymore. His dad was. The boy's arms wrapped around his father's neck. His head bounced as his father's pace quickened. Now that he wasn't running, his head turned back and he could see it. It was gaining on them little by little. 4 arms with nails that scraped across the ground, digging and slicing the roads with ease. Its brain bulged grotesquely from its skull, pulsing. No eyes. A mouth had stretched from one end of its face to the other. He was gaining. No, he was already on them. The boy wanted to shout. He wanted to scream to his papa. The words caught in his throat, terror strangling his vocal cords so he couldn't speak out. The villain's arm was raised. The creature brought it down, slicing the air and creating an audible sound that rang in the boy and father's ears. The father didn't turn but simply clutched his son closer to his chest, hoping to protect him with his body as best he could. He curled around the small form in his arms. Then. Light. Golden and warm. The villain stopping dead in their tracks. Blood seeping out from the middle, slowly at first, a thin dark line appearing all the way from the top of its head to the bottom of its cervix. Then a sound like cloth tearing apart, or skin being peeled off. Wet. The father and son both turned around. The Nomu lay dead, bisected in twain, dark blood pooling beneath them, slowly making its way towards the father's shoes. The creature's halves had fallen away from each, innards spilling onto the concrete in a steaming heap. In the villain's place was a boy. The man and son couldn't take their gazes away. Blonde hair disheveled that fell to his nape. Blue eyes. Adorned with armor, straight out of a fairy tale with a blue and golden cape billowing behind him, the dark blood dripping down it and him in rivulets, pooling at his feet to mix with that of the monster he had slain. And the most eye-catching thing was the sword glowing in his hand, shining, and the smile on the boy's face. You're safe. I am here. And with those words he was gone. The light went with him. The father sank to his knees, his son still clutched to his chest, and wept tears of joy. Arthur POV. I ran. Street after street, prioritizing damage control and people in danger rather than the Nomus themselves. My senses stretched out across the prefecture, driven to their incredibly enhanced limits. A family trapped beneath rubble, there, a woman clutching a child behind an overturned car, further still, an elderly man frozen in terror as one of those things stalked toward him. When I did see a Nomu, I didn't waver. I cut them down one after the other. Excalibur excited in my grip, her edge meeting no resistance. I kept repeating it over in my head. They are dead. They are dead. They are dead. They are. I separate the legs of another Nomu I find, the blade passing through muscle and bone as if through water. Then I cut its torso from hip to shoulder, a diagonal stroke that Excalibur completes before the creature can even register the pain. Gravity takes hold of the body parts and they squelch onto the ground, black blood spreading on the asphalt. A part of a building is falling. I hear the groan of stressed concrete, the scream of someone below. I jump to catch it, mana reinforcing my muscles as I guide the debris slowly to the ground. A woman stares up at me from where she had been cowering, tears streaming down her face. I offer her a smile before I'm moving again. Minutes go by. One Nomu. Then another. Then 3 more. I lose count. I stop trying to count. Each one falls the same way, quickly, cleanly, return to the rest they had been denied. Save who I can save. Until finally I am done. There is still crying but the screams have stopped, instead the crackle of flames fill my ears. I stay rooted to my spot, standing in the middle of a street painted black with Nomu blood. I can feel a smile form on my face. It doesn't reach my eyes. Still I think I am happy. Or something close to it. I sheath Excalibur in Avalon. I do not worry about the blood that got on her. They both are impossible to stain, the blood simply slides off them. I look up to the night sky. Light pollution makes it so that almost no stars are visible to normal eyes. Still I see them all, thousands upon thousands of points of light. It's beautiful in a way I can't describe. I feel my smile widening if only a bit. Then I feel a hand on my shoulder. My body doesn't tense. I had heard him approaching. My eyes turn. A man almost as muscular as All Might himself. Short crimson hair spiked around his head like the crest of some great bird. Flames lick his face in the shape of a mustache and beard. Vigilante, he states. There had been a reason why Endeavor hadn't sent me a letter to intern at his agency. Turns out he notoriously hated vigilantes. It's then that I noticed Todoroki is behind him. Shoto stands several paces back, his heterochromatic eyes fixed on me with an expression I cannot read. We've never talked much, he and I. Not even after the sports festival when I had faced him. My eyes turned back to his father, the number 2 pro hero. Not one anymore. Sir, I replied evenly. What are you doing here in Shibuya? I heard the distress call in Yokohama, so I decided to come here. My internship mentor should be here soon. I gesture vaguely at the carnage around us, the bisected corpses. I have eliminated all nomas in the vicinity. I cannot put out fires, however, without doing severe damage to the surroundings. I'd appreciate your help with that. Fight fire with fire. My eyes turn to Todoroki. You too, please. By the way, it's nice seeing you, Shoto. He smiles as I address him by his hero name. It's gone the next moment. Likewise. I turned back to his father. He was still just staring at me. Until he didn't. He trudged on without another word, moving toward the nearest blaze. Flames spawned from his hands, consuming the other fire, which he then smothered and put out. Shoto followed after a moment, ice forming around him. I myself jumped back to the roof I had been standing on before all of this and picked up my phone. The screen was cracked from earlier, but it still worked. I should probably apologize to Nizu for that. Later. I guess now all that was left was to cure those who had been hurt. Emergency services would be arriving soon, but I could help. I was about to go when I suddenly felt it. Killing intent. It was enormous, a pressure against my senses. Who could have this? It was beyond anything I had ever encountered. It was also something the Nomas didn't have. No, this was coming from a human. And it was coming from. My head turned to where my instinct pointed, my enhanced senses triangulating the source. Not here. Not in Shibuya. Somewhere else. My legs pushed off the roof and into the air before I had consciously decided to move. The city blurred beneath me as I crossed the distance in nanoseconds, landing onto a street in another of Tokyo's prefectures with enough force to crack the pavement. Hosu City. In an alley that stank of blood. I hated that smell. Midoriya had his fists balled up and raised. Ida was on the floor, one of his legs pierced by a sword that pinned him to the concrete. His breathing was ragged and pained. Sliding down a wall was the body of another hero, his costume soaked with blood, his heartbeat growing weaker with every passing second. And standing over Ida, blade raised for another strike, was the source of this malevolent pressure. Hero killer, Stain. I had read about him. Everyone had. His body count was significant. His ideology something that a few even agreed with. Midoriya, I speak up. His head doesn't turn to me, it's then that I realize no part of him is moving. Stain's head does turn, however. His eyes widen when he sees me, taking in the armor, the blood still drying on my gauntlets, the sword in my hand. And then he smiles. Full of teeth, too cracked. Arthur. I unsheath Excalibur once more. Her light brightens up the alley. Stop now. Or I'll stop you myself. I say that, but my attention is split. I can hear it, the man on the wall, his heartbeat is failing. His lungs are filling with blood. He's lost too much already, and every second I waste talking is a second closer to his death. I cannot let that happen. I decide not to make things longer than I should. I dash at Stain. Blitzing him before his perception catches up, closing the distance between us and the space between heartbeats. The pommel of Excalibur connects with his temple, not the edge, never the edge against a human if I could avoid it, and the impact sends him flying off Ida and slamming into a wall. Midoriya speaks up, his voice tight with urgency. Arthur, be careful. His quirk paralyzes you if he tastes your blood. I guess that's why he didn't answer earlier. How long does the paralysis last? Not that it matters, still I nod in acknowledgement. His blades cannot cut me. Slowly Stain rises. He clutches his head where I struck him, the cloth mask that was covering his eyes falling to the floor. His face is gaunt. Blood trickles from his temple as he begins to froth at the mouth, his eyes rolling with fervor. Ha ha ha. The laughter echoes off the alley walls. Even for these hypocrites you protect, you really are the best. But don't you see? I'm cutting out the root cause, the reason why you had to become a vigilante. Why I had to. This society punishes those with conviction. It has been poisoned from the inside, by heroes like Endeavor. How is that false hero, number 2? No, this system is a cancer, and like a cancer I need to, cut it out at its roots. I appear in front of him again. This time he actually manages to bring his sword up to block, impressive, but the gap between us is so vast it doesn't matter. I kick his ankle, making him buckle but not breaking it. I slam the pommel into his forehead a little stronger this time, and his eyes roll back as consciousness leaves him. He crumples to the ground. I've had enough philosophical talks about the current system from Nizu, I say to his unconscious form. I don't need yours. I turn away from him. My eyes are focused on the men bleeding out against the wall. A false hero. I sheath Excalibur in Avalon and then hold out Avalon to the men. She is warm to the touch. Grab her. His hand reaches out, trembling. His fingers find purchase at the edge of the scabbard, barely managing to hold on. Then I begin to heal him, or rather, Avalon does. I'm just supplying the mana. It doesn't take long. Less than Rin. Less than Aizawa. Still, the man is exhausted, and his eyes flutter closed as healing sleep takes him. I smile. He will live. That's what matters. I pick him up in a princess carry, careful not to jostle him. Then I move to Stain's unconscious form and sling him over my shoulder like a sack of grain. He's heavier than he looks. When I turn around, Ida and Midoriya are just looking at me. Awkward. Send those stones. Ladies and gents. THX for reading. Author out. Chapter 72, Hello there hero killer, Stain. The sound of steps echo in my ears. Nizu's fur rustles against my cheek as he shifts on my shoulder, and I can hear the subtle change in his breathing. I can hear everything the people around me have. I can even hear the circulating blood in the prisoners' bodies. We are at Tartarus' lowest level. A few days had gone past. In fact, today was going to be my last day in the internship, but instead I was here doing this. I hated it in a sense. The request had come, without forethought. Stain would only talk to Arthur or All Might. No police. No guards in the room. When Nizu had told me, I'd expected to feel something. I didn't want to, but I did it anyway. I came here. Few lights dangle over us, illuminating the corridor in pools of sickly yellow that would help no one with normal eyesight. The smell is salty, probably from the water the facility is submerged in. My eyes land on a woman with purple hair. She's just staring at the ground, sitting in the corner of her cell with her knees drawn up. Eyes dead. A living corpse. Waiting for nothing. I am disgusted by all this. Yes, these people were villains. But they didn't deserve this. I believed anyone could change. It was a belief I'd clung to since I was young, since my mother had told me that kindness could reach anyone if you just tried hard enough. But how could these people change? These people who were locked up and treated worse than rabid animals. How could they change, when no effort was made to change them? When the system that put them here had already decided they were beyond redemption. Did they even deserve the chance at redemption? The legal system didn't think so. But did that mean it was right? I'd seen enough of the world to know that what was legal and what was just rarely overlapped as much as people wanted to believe. I feel Nizu's tail swish and touch my other cheek. I stop dead in my tracks. My eyes find the glass that looks into a room, no, a cell, though calling it a room makes it easier to stomach. Inside, a man now shaved bald was strapped in a straitjacket. The restraints look excessive, especially since his quirk didn't enhance his physical abilities. His arms are bound. His legs are the only thing that are free, that and his mouth. And yet when he turns slowly to the glass, to me, there's nothing defeated in his posture. He smiles. Widening from ear to ear. It almost looks like the edges of his lips are beginning to tear, stretching further than any normal smile should go. I've seen that expression before. In the alley in Hosu. In the split second before I'd knocked him unconscious. Hello there, he says. His voice carries to the corridor through speakers that hang on the reinforced glass. But I don't hear that tinny reproduction. Instead, I hear his real voice in the cell. Enhanced senses aren't always all that it's cracked up to be. There's an almost reverent quality to it. Like he's been waiting for this. Stain. His eyes move to Nizu. They linger for a moment. Then they look around as if trying to find anyone else who could have followed me down the corridor, but no, the guard were still waiting at the elevator. Where's All Might? The question hangs in the salty air. Nizu's paw finds some purchase on my shoulder as he looks closer into the cell. I am here, I reply, before Niza can. You've got information for me. Stain's eyes snap back to mine. That smile doesn't waver. If anything, it grows. No. You already have the information. All the names and dates are out there for all to see. What you want, what you really need, is a story. A story can be true or false, I answer back. I guess I'm in vigilante mode, because I'm too calm about all of this. I leave such judgments to you, Arthur. I want to sigh, but I remain quiet, however Niza does it for me, a small exhale that carries my frustration. He even whispers something in my ear. This is going to be a hassle. Stain continues, undeterred by our silence. It's almost like he's rehearsed this. Maybe he has. He's had nothing but time to do so. Our story begins as these stories often do, with a system that has grown stale in content. A system that hides from the public and holds control over the most important parts with no regards for moral process. A system that feeds from the fear and unrest its absence could arise. His tongue slightly too long, travels along his lips, smacking them for moisture. So he doesn't stumble or falter. However, the true goal of this system is power. Complete and total hegemonic domination, to cut out all who are seen as different or can think differently. But if your ultimate goal is power, how best to achieve that goal? He tilts his head, as if genuinely curious whether I'll answer. I don't. It's at this point in our story that along comes a sniper. The word lands like a stone dropped into still water. She is a woman seemingly without a conscience. Dragged along by the Hero Public Safety Commission, an organization for which the ends always justify the means. The sniper is sent to do worse and worse missions. At first, perhaps, she believes in what she's doing. Perhaps she tells herself it's necessary. That the people she's eliminating are genuine threats. He begins to walk forward towards the glass, he doesn't stop. Like nothing in this prison can truly contain what he is. A quirk related to blood. They are killed. His voice drops. A quirk that's too dangerous. They are killed. More and more heroes become ordered killers. Not against villains, against quirks. Against potential. Against anything that threatens the Commission's control. I want to look away. I don't. But wouldn't we notice it? After all, how easy could it be to hide all that? He's at the glass now, close enough that I can see my own reflection overlapping with his face. That's where the true genius of the plan comes into play. The flooding. Flooding the city with heroes to make the public feel safe. Heroes for fame. Heroes for propaganda. Heroes who could do reprehensible acts but are all covered up. Heroes like Endeavor. The name hangs. I think of Todoroki. Flooded with hypocrites. As he talks, I can't stop myself from listening. Every word burrows into me. And you. Stain's voice softens, almost fond. You are a thorn in that system. Or were, at least. Someone who no one could control. Someone who he reaches the edges of the glass, his face pressing against it, pupils dilating until the red of his iris nearly disappears. Could make the entire system tumble down. I hold my ground. I don't step back. But unlike the sniper who eventually turned on the system, you came into its fold. You joined UA. You became a student. A hero in training. There's disappointment there. Genuine disappointment. Heroes became the ultimate tool of this government, and through them, they could manipulate the stories in any way they pleased. The rest, as they say, is history. Silence. I can taste the salty air now instead of just smelling it. Somewhere in another cell, someone coughs. Nizu speaks up, before I can. So what you're saying is that the entire Hero Public Safety Commission, and our hero system in and of itself, is corrupt? Why yes, I am. Stain pulls back from the glass slightly, that smile returning. A man in my position has no reason to lie. My eyes stare into Stain's, and Stain's stare into mine. I search for deception. For madness. For anything that would let me dismiss what he's saying as the ravings of a killer of a madman trying to justify his crimes. I find conviction instead. What happened to the sniper? I don't know that. The answer comes too quickly. Does he truly not know? Are there still ordered killers? His smile widens even more. The skin at the corners of his mouth stretches white with tension. He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to. I have my answer. I turn to Nizu. The question burns in my throat. Could he know? Could the principal of UA, the being who had taken me in and guided me, who had sat with me through nightmares and talked philosophy over tea, who was the one closest to me, could he have known about any of this? Stain walks back from the glass. He sits down, knees drawn to his chest, still staring at me with those blood-red eyes. Still smiling. I decide to ask. My voice is low, barely above a whisper, pitched so only Nizu can hear. Nizu dash. No, lad. His response is immediate. I did not. I am still staring at Stain. He's still staring at me. Through the glass, through the speakers. I don't know why, but I can't believe Nizu for some reason. The doubt sits in my chest. Nizu dash. Lad, seriously. I didn't. His paw presses against my cheek again, turning my face towards him. His eyes are earnest. Worried. You need to believe me. I want to. I want to believe him more than almost anything. But wanting doesn't make it true. I walk over to the glass myself. My hand rises, almost landing on the reinforced surface, but I'm reminded of the protocols Tartarus has in place. No physical contact with the barriers. No exchange of materials. No chances taken. I am also reminded of the sole reason I was here. Stain said he would only talk with Arthur or All Might. Without any police or guards. He'd wanted this conversation. Planned for it. Used his silence as leverage until he got exactly what he asked for. Can you prove any of this? I ask. Stain stops smiling. For the first time since I arrived. It's almost eerie and wrong in a way to see him not smiling at me. Why do you think I am still alive? I nod at his words. Then I begin to walk down the corridor toward the elevator once more, where 2 guards are waiting to take us up. My footsteps echo. Nizu is silent on my shoulder. My eyes land on the woman with purple hair once more. She still hasn't moved. Still staring at nothing. Still waiting for nothing. Still a living corpse. If, and only if, this is true. What can I do about it? What can I fix? I entertain, if only for a moment, what Stain had said. I was someone who could make the system tumble down because of my vigilantism. Because I'd operated outside their control. Because Excalibur didn't care about legal authority or proper channels. No. If, and only if, this was true, I needed to be smarter about it. Stain was still someone who had killed heroes. Regardless of reason. Regardless of what corruption those heroes or the HPSC may have been part of. Murder wasn't justice. It was just more violence. Nizu dash, I begin, trying to confide in him, my worries. First thing I'm doing, he replies just before we make it to the elevator where 2 guards are waiting. I smile a bit. If there was one person I could trust on this, it was Nizu. We stay quiet until we make it outside of Tartarus. Its 2 guards, Gyges and Briareos, both multi-armed quirk users, stand like monoliths in front of the bronze gate. They don't even greet us as we make it out. Waves lap against the concrete foundations, the sound filling my ears. Down there I couldn't hear it, the water surrounding the facility down there was calm, I could simply hear the metal straining against the pressure, but that was it. But I hear something else. A buzz. I can't think about it too long as we get into a car and are driven back to Muzotafu. A/N was going to write another chapter or 2 about the internship, but I decided against it. Hope you all enjoyed this. Arthur and Stain got his talk, and Stain is a really good talker. That's pretty much it. THX for reading. Send those stones, I really need 'em. Hope to see you soon once more. Author out. Chapter 73, A Date. I was sitting in an office. Nizu's office. A few weeks had gone by since Hosu, since Stain, since the internship and Ryukyu. Soon it would be time for something I dreaded perhaps more than any villain, written exams. I was not good at those. Never had been. Maybe because my only experience with education aside from UA was in elementary school. But I had to focus on that later. Right now, I had to focus on why I was here. After our talk with Stain, the police had asked us what he had said. Standard procedure. Expected. Nizu had already given them a psychological profile, Stain's real name, his backstory, everything they asked, Nizu knew. But he never revealed anything that had actually happened in Tartarus. Not the words. Not the accusations. Not the conspiracy that had been laid bare before us like a festering wound. It made me wonder where he got all that other information from. The man, or rather mouse, was a walking enigma wrapped in white fur. After returning to UA, he had told me something that still echoed in my mind. What Stain said does not leave our ears. It made me want to burst my head like a balloon. The amount of secrets I had to keep was piling up by the week. One for all. All for one. The corruption festering in the Hero Public Safety Commission. The truth about how heroes were made and unmade by forces the public never saw. In a way, it was exhausting. Still, I had had enough time to readjust, to compartmentalize, to lock away each secret in its own mental vault. I still remembered our conversation in the dead of night in this very office. I thought back to it. Nizu, if what Stain said was true Yes, I know, lad. His voice was heavy. Tired in a way I had rarely heard from him. We can't be reckless with this though. We must take the Hero Public Safety Commission from within, otherwise this is for naught. I plopped down on a chair in front of him, the leather creaking under my weight. I moved Excalibur and Avalon from my waist into a soft embrace. How are we going to do that? The questions tumbled out of me, each one more urgent than the last. And what about the people? Shouldn't they deserve to know? About the corruption? And what about the flooding of heroes? Could that be an actual possibility? The flooding. The deliberate oversaturation of heroes to create dependence, to drown out dissent, to make the system seem too big to fail. Verily, Nizu replied as he plopped into his own reclining chair, his small form almost swallowed by the cushions. But give me some time. A few weeks, maybe a few months. I need to find concrete information and I need to do it discreetly, which is going to be hard. He paused, and I could tell he was frustrated. That didn't happen much. I don't like saying this, but they do have fairly smart humans. Coming from Nizu, that was practically a compliment. Still, I pressed, my fingers curling against my thighs, the entire Public Safety Commission. Did they really just grant me the pardons because they wanted to keep control over heroes? The pardons. My golden ticket back into legitimate society. The thing that had allowed me to walk these halls, to wear this uniform, to call myself a hero in training instead of a criminal. Had it all been a leash dressed up as a gift? It is a very real possibility, Nizu sighed. I always thought it was weird how easily they accepted your demands to not apologize for your vigilante activity in and of itself. I thought that maybe a few had good hearts. He paused. In the lamplight, his eyes seemed older than usual. Guess I was wrong. The admission hung in the air between us. Just give me a few months. Until after summer break. I need some time. Don't do anything drastic until then. If we're doing this dash, he fixed me with a stare that brooked no argument, I want the least amount of fallout possible. I repeat, don't do anything drastic. Now why would you say that? I replied, allowing a small smile to cross my face. Weren't you the one who taught me restraint? I blinked, and I was once more in the office. But Nizu wasn't the only one here with me now. No, All Might and Midoriya were here too, seated in chairs that had been arranged in a loose semicircle. Midoriya was skittish. His fingers drumming against his thighs, then stopping for a moment in his lap, before returning to drum his thighs, and his heartbeat, I could hear it clearly, raced like a startled rabbit's. We had just finished telling him about All for One. Well, All Might and Nizu had done most of the talking. I had been brought into the loop because I already knew all of this, along with knowing Midoriya was All Might's successor. But I had been brought in here for another reason as well. Had healed Midoriya's nerve damage. All of it. Over the past few weeks. I had also healed a few more people, Ida and his brother Tensei, a few patients at the hospital who had been sleeping sick for years. All of them had been sworn to secrecy, by Nizu and myself. The only one who hadn't sworn anything was the addict I had healed in the alley. But I was sure that he wouldn't say anything. Call it a gut feeling. I was pretty good at reading people, well most people. So, this All for One, he's gone. Midoriya asked into the room. None of us spoke up to ease his worries. The silence stretched, uncomfortable and heavy. The simple reason was that none of us were sure. The Nomus were something unexplainable, even considering All for One's quirk. The sheer bioengineering knowledge and material needed to create so many was something even Nizu would have a hard time replicating. And if Nizu couldn't do it alone? Finally, All Might spoke up. We are not sure, young Midoriya. His voice was gentle but firm, not like in class and yet similar in a way. That is why you must learn to control One for All as soon as possible. Midoriya's eyes whirled in their sockets. His gaze landed on me, and I could see the calculation happening behind those green irises. I could tell what he was doing. He was comparing us. What about Arthur? I will fight against any threat, I replied. But having someone who can keep up would be helpful. He nodded before looking back down at his hands. His now no longer scarred, healed hands. It was then that I noticed how similar Midoriya was to me in some ways. The weight of responsibility that had been thrust upon him. The legacy he carried. In some ways I pitied him, just as I pitied the 8-year-old version of me, who had thought the world would crumble if he couldn't hold it up. I could see why Nizu would have wanted All Might to choose me. But I was glad, in a way, that he had chosen Midoriya instead. Still, I looked down at Avalon at my side. When would I be able to share with the public that I could heal others? It was something I wanted to announce as fast as possible, to throw open the doors of hospitals and say I can help, let me help, but I also knew I had to restrain myself. People knowing someone could heal almost any ailment or injury was not good. The demand would be infinite. The expectations impossible. The backlash to unmet demand would have been hard to stomach. I had learned that much. It was probably something I wouldn't have considered if I were still a vigilante, back when my only concern was the next fight, the next person to save. It was hard to believe how much I had changed in the past months. I rose from my chair, bowing slightly to All Might and Midoriya along with a short nod to Nizu. I'll be taking my leave now. I have nothing else to add. I met Midoriya's eyes one final time. It will be nice seeing you grow, Midoriya. I hope to see you one day at my side. I left the office after that, walking back to the UA dormitories. My footsteps echoed through the empty hallways. I just wanted to sleep. It gave me a pleasure like none else. Well, that was a lie. Food got close. Really, damn close. I rubbed my eyes, already putting myself in the mood to sleep, which was harder to do than it sounded. Since Avalon took away all actual need to sleep, I had to fool my senses into doing so. But as I turned into the hallway that led to my room, I saw someone leaning against my door. Her hands were behind her back, her blue hair cascading over her shoulders in waves. She shifted her weight from foot to foot. Nijire. What was she doing here? My hand went up to greet her. She did the same, her smile brightening as I approached. Hey Nijire, I began. What's going on? Nothing, it's just that, well she scratched her cheek, and I could hear her heart racing faster for some reason. I could even see some sweat starting to form around her brow. The sight was unusual. Had she run here? The first trimester is about to end, she continued, her words coming out in a rush. We both have final exams in a few days and after that, we probably won't be seeing each other much. You know summer break first years spend it at a camp. So I was wondering if it wouldn't be too much trouble and wouldn't change your schedule too much, if you know dash. She twirled her hair around her index finger as she spoke. The gesture was oddly endearing. Well, would you be willing to go to the movies with me tomorrow? She asked the question almost yelling the last word. Sure, I smiled back. Social interaction was almost as good as food, maybe I'd invite the gang to go somewhere soon, maybe to the library, God, knew we needed it. Tell me the time and place. It'll be fun. Awesome. Well then, bye. It's a date. With those final words, she took off. Golden spiral energy appeared underneath her feet, lifting her into the air, and she shot away toward her own dormitory. I watched her go, the spirals of light fading into the distance. I stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. A date. She hadn't told me what date it was, though. A/N, we speeding up, vroom, vroom, let romance bloom, because Christmas is almost upon us. Also cause it's been a few months since I've been in a relationship and I fucking hate it lol, need to put myself out there again instead of writing fanfiction. Hope you all enjoyed this. I know some people don't like clueless protagonists but honestly I was the same at his age, like I could not tell a girl like me until she sat on my lap lol. Either way, THX for reading. Send those stones. Author out.